Cover Girl. By Ashenifi. Int. Fashion Runway, black and white, night. We see models walking in the runway, tall, alluring, attractive, seductive, and gorgeous. Camera lights flash from every angle. On the soundtrack, Slow, by Kylie Minogue plays melodiously. Then comes a beautiful girl, Elizabeth McCarty, 22, around 5'7", not as tall as the other models, and strikes a pose. She does a couple of poses with serious cuts as the camera lights continue to flash at her from every angle. Int. Photo shot, black and white, day. We see Elizabeth posing for different photographers in series cuts. Cut to. Elizabeth does few sensual nude poses. The photographers continue to take her pictures. Cut to. We see Elizabeth in every cover of magazine, Vogue, Vanity Fair, Esquire, Cosmopolitan, etc. Fade to black. Cover Girl. Fade in. EXT apartment, morning. It's one of those elegant condominiums that we see in Manhattan. Int. Elizabeth's apartment, bedroom, morning. Elizabeth sleeps in beauty. The alarm clock rings. Elizabeth stops the alarm, and gets up from the bed only wearing underwear. We see her two striking breasts resting on her chest flawlessly. Elizabeth, softly to herself, life is beautiful. Just have fun. She grabs a cigarette, lights it, takes a drag and walks toward the camera. Int. Bathtub, morning. Elizabeth lies in the tub that's filled with hot water and soaps, making a phone call with her cell phone while smoking a cigarette. Int. Bill's house, living room, morning/int. Bathtub, morning. An attractive woman named Katharina Jones, 36, walks to the phone and picks it up. Note, we would intercut both sides of the conversations if there is any. Mrs. Jones, hello. Elizabeth doesn't say anything. Mrs. Jones, who's this? Elizabeth hangs up. Mrs. Jones acts like a little bit offended and hangs up the phone. Meanwhile, a charismatic man named William Jones, aka Bill, 42, a CEO of Aphrodite, a fashion magazine, walks to the living room, fastening his tie. Bill, who's it? Mrs. Jones, I don't know. They hang up on my ear. Bill, humorously, I hate when people do that. It gets on my nerves. Bill gives her a quick kiss on the cheek and walks toward the camera, blacking the screen. Int. Elizabeth's apartment, bathtub, morning. Close up, Elizabeth. She leans forward slightly. Elizabeth, imitating Mrs. Jones, who's this? Bitch. Elizabeth puts down the phone on top of toilet seat, takes a drag from her cigarette, and crashes it on an ashtray. EXT Nicholas's apartment, porch, day. /EXT Elizabeth's apartment, porch, day. A handsome man, Nicholas, 28, stands in his porch, smoking Marlboro. Then Elizabeth comes to her porch with a cigarette and lighter, and looks at Nicholas. Elizabeth, hi. Nicholas, hi. Elizabeth puts the cigarette between her lips, and tries to light it. But her lighter doesn't work. She tries again. It doesn't work. Elizabeth, fuck. The cigarette slips out of her lips and falls 25 floors like a villain in a bad action film. Elizabeth, bitch. Looks at Nicholas. That's just about my luck. Nicholas looks at her. Elizabeth, I think something is trying to tell me I should quit smoking. That was my last cigarette. He smiles at her softly, and takes out a Marlboro box. Nicholas, I should be quitting myself too. Reads the warning. It says, cigarette smoke contains carbon monoxide. Elizabeth, mockingly, I hardly believe cigarette smoke contains any carbon monoxide at all. They just try to scare you. But I heard the worst. In England, smoking clogs the arteries, causes heart attacks, and kills you as well. Nicholas gives her a charismatic smile. Nicholas, in England, not only they drive in the wrong side of the street, but when it rains, it pours like a sad day in heaven. Elizabeth, if we run into each other in England, we will sing in the rain like Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds. Nicholas, I look forward to it. But the rain will distinguish the cigarette. He opens the box. There is one cigarette left. He takes it out. Nicholas, God save the Queen. There is one cigarette left. Straightens his hand to give her. Farewell. Elizabeth, why not? Elizabeth stretches her hand to take the cigarette from Nicholas's hand. But their hands fall short. Nicholas, I have an idea. I'll just toss it with the box. Elizabeth, that is a wonderful idea. Nicholas puts back the cigarette in the box. Elizabeth, do you have a lighter too? Nicholas reaches his pocket, takes out a lighter, puts it in the box and throws the box to Elizabeth. Elizabeth catches the box in the air. Elizabeth, thanks. Nicholas, you welcome. Elizabeth pulls the cigarette out of the box, takes out the lighter as well, lights the cigarette, takes a drag, and exhales the smoke out with style. Elizabeth, I'll quit after this. I care about my health. Nicholas, that sounds good. Elizabeth gives him a sweet smile. There is a pause. They smoke quietly. He then. Nicholas, I notice you have beautiful eyes. Elizabeth, you think so? Nicholas, they are precious like two wild butterfly quenching their thirst with the lakes in Serengeti. They bring out your natural beauty. She smiles in beauty. Elizabeth, thanks. You're quite handsome too. We never properly introduced to each other. I'm Elizabeth. Nicholas. Out of nowhere comes an imposing girl, Amanda, 28, to Nicholas's porch. She is wearing Nicholas's shirt. We see the bottom half of her well-rounded buttocks down by the shirt. She's not wearing any underwear. Amanda, did you see my underwear, Nick? Sees Elizabeth. Hi. Elizabeth, hi. Amanda, to Nicholas, it's a gift from my fiancé. Where is it? Nicholas, I don't know, it could be somewhere inside. Amanda, I looked everywhere. I couldn't find it. Nicholas, did you check the box at the studio? I might throw it away with other clothes by mistake. Amanda, I will check. She gives him a juicy French kiss and walks inside. Close up, Elizabeth. She takes a drag from her cigarette and breathes out coolly. Elizabeth, I didn't know you got company. Nicholas, just a friend. Elizabeth, softly, it seems she is having a lot of fun. Nicholas, strictly business. Elizabeth, I know what you mean. Elizabeth takes a drag, kills her cigarette, and exhales the smoke with style as if it were part of her respiratory system. Elizabeth, anyway, let me get back. I have to be somewhere. I'll keep this, referring to the cigarette, as a souvenir, the last cigarette I smoked. Pleased to meet you, Nick. Nicholas, pleasure is mine. Elizabeth, take care. Nicholas, bye. Elizabeth walks in, leaving Nicholas on top of the screen. On the soundtrack, Kajagoogoo's Too Shy plays melodiously. EXT Beach, photo shot, day. Elizabeth poses provocatively for Patrick, an enthusiastic photographer. We see the camera crew, grips, and assistants, working on the background. Patrick tells Elizabeth how he wants her to pose, moving his hands with attitude and boldness. A medium shot of Elizabeth as she continues to pose with style, confidence, poise, and sensuality. Patrick continues to take her pictures, one take after another, as we continue to her Too Shy on the soundtrack. We stay with them for a little while with series cuts. Int. Restaurant, night. It is a 5-star romantic restaurant. Bill sits at a table waiting for Elizabeth. We see a handful of customers sitting at tables and enjoying their outings. A man named Randy, 34, sings Joe Cocker's You're So Beautiful while playing piano. Then Elizabeth, wearing a light purple tantalizing gown, walks in. Bill sees her at the entrance. She looks at him. He gets up. She approaches him. Elizabeth, hi. Bill, hi. They kiss on the lips, greeting. Bill, you look breathtaking. Elizabeth, thanks. He pulls a chair for her. She sits at the table. Bill returns to his seat. Bill, how are you? Elizabeth, I'm fine. You know, just being so cruel to myself. Bill, how is that? Elizabeth, it's nothing. A waiter named Kyle comes to the table with a bottle of red wine and glasses. Kyle, to Elizabeth, good evening. Elizabeth, hey. Kyle places the glasses in front of them, opens the wine, pours the wine in the glasses, and puts down the bottle. Kyle, we'll be with you in a minute. Bill nods. Kyle walks away. Bill looks at Elizabeth in the eye softly as Randy continues to sing You Are So Beautiful. Bill, what's up? Elizabeth, nothing fucking much. Bill, what's it? Elizabeth, everything. Life in general, the direction I'm going. Bill, what about it? Elizabeth, I don't like it. I mean, I'm not sure whether to stop modeling, and move to Los Angeles and become a full-time actress, or stay here in New York City and wait for you till you do something about her. Your so-called desperate housewife. Bill, it's not easy, Liz. I am doing everything in my power to make things better than they are. I just can't walk away from them. I will tell her when the time is right. Elizabeth, I hear you. Bill, besides, they said, good things come for those who wait. Just be patient. Things will work out for the better. Elizabeth, I'll wait if that's what you want me to do, and hope you'll come to your sense and understand what I am going through. But I don't know if I can continue to live the life I am living for long. I might go crazy. A waitress named Jada comes to the table to take their orders. Jada, how may I serve you? Bill takes the menu and looks at it. But Elizabeth doesn't even bother to touch it. Elizabeth, I'm okay. Thanks. Bill, you don't want anything? Elizabeth, I'll pass. I just had lunch few hours ago. Bill, it's okay. To Jada. Don't worry about it. Thanks. Bill gives the waitress the menu. Jada takes the menus, nods her head sure and walks away. There is a pause. Bill and Elizabeth gaze at each other eyes for seconds. Bill, was that you who called at the house this morning? Elizabeth, what difference does that make? I can't call you. I can't see you. I can't talk to you. I feel like a prostitute who falls in love with her pimp. He can't help but smile softly. Bill, don't say that, Elizabeth. You know, I love you more than life itself. I would never do anything to hurt your feeling in purpose. Elizabeth, I wish I hadn't met you. I have never felt so cheap in my life, falling in love with a married man who doesn't know that I exist. It's a fucking cruel world that I am living in. I had never thought my life would turn out this way. Bill, you're not saying that to make me feel guilty, are you? Elizabeth, honest. For a moment there, Your heart tries to convince you if he's married or unmarried, you're going out with the man whom you love. You then realize he'll never leave his wife. You might as well cut your wrist and forget him forever. Bill, now you're acting like a little girl, Liz. You know you're the best thing ever happened to me. Elizabeth, cuts him short. Let's just forget it. Do what we come to do. Eat, drink, go to a motel, and have sex till you tell me I am the only thing that it matters in this unpredictable world. She grabs her drink, takes a big sip, and puts down her glass. He looks at her silently. On the background, Randy continues to sing, "You're so beautiful." There is a silent moment. Bill then gives her his hand. She takes his hand. Bill, softly, "I love you, Elizabeth. I don't want you to be sad. Your happiness means everything to me. Please forgive me. It's beyond my control. I will do what is best for us when the time is right." He kisses her hand. On the soundtrack, opera plays melodiously. Int. Opera House, night. The Mask of Orpheus is in progress. Elizabeth and Bill are in a box, watching silently. We stay a while with Elizabeth, Bill, and the Mask of Orpheus, Act 2. Int. New York City, Park, night. Elizabeth and Bill take a walk silently. She then. Elizabeth, you haven't said a word since we left that opera house. Bill, I'm just contemplating what you mean to me. Or rather a thing that describes you the best. They stand lips to lips. Elizabeth, under her breath, what is it? Bill, softly down by her lips a rose that discovers true joy in falling in love. They kiss intimately. She then senses something. They part their lips, and look at each other's eyes tenderly. Elizabeth, is there anything you want to tell me? There is a pause. He then. Bill, I'm sorry, Liz. I have to be honest with you. I can't see you for a while. We have to take time off. My wife knows everything. She threatens to take away my daughter, and move to Vancouver. I don't care about anything. However, I promised my daughter I would be the best father she could ever have possibly. I don't want to break her heart. I want to be there for her as much as I love you. She looks at him for about 3 seconds. Elizabeth then slaps him across his face. Bill doesn't move. She tries to hit him again. But he holds her hand and kisses her passionately. She pushes him and spits on his face. Elizabeth, just don't. Bill, put yourself in my situation. He pulls his lips and cuddles her. A tear escapes from her right eye and falls by her cheek. On the soundtrack, Crazy by Aerosmith plays melodiously. Int. Club, night. It is a stylish club in Manhattan. Nicola sits at the bar, drinking scotch on the rocks. We see customers standing at the bar and sitting at the tables with drinks, dancing on the dance floor, etc. Across the bar, an ambrosial girl named Wendy, 28, who is sitting at the bar with Margareta, checks out Nicholas as if he stole her heart and put crown of thorns around it. Nicholas catches her eyes. She gives him a beautiful smile. He returns her smile, grabs his drinks, takes a sip, and puts down the glass. Then out of nowhere comes a bewitching girl named Linda Moore, 25, and stands next Nicholas. Linda, hi. Nicholas, hi. Linda, you don't remember me? We met 5 months ago. You did a nude portrait of me at your apartment, and told me you would give me a call. Nicholas, right, Linda Moss. Linda, Linda Moore. Nicholas, I meant Linda Moore. I swear I was thinking about you few days ago out of the blue. It must be your beautiful eyes. They are burned in my memory. Linda, I get that a lot. Nicholas, can I get you a drink? Linda, sure. I'll have martini. Nicholas, to the bartender who happens to be standing nearby. Would you make her a martini, please? The bartender, give me a minute. The bartender begins to make her martini. Nicholas turns his eyes, and looks at Wendy. She gives him a wink. He smiles softly and turns his eyes as Linda stands between his legs. Linda, so, what are you up to lately? Nicholas, nothing, just painting day and night. Linda, why didn't you give me a call? Nicholas, I lost your number. Before he adds another sentence, she kisses him with a tongue. They kiss French. On the soundtrack, Half of My Heart by John Mayer plays melodiously replacing Crazy. Int. Apartment, floor 25, corridor, night. Elizabeth is sleeping on the floor in front of Nicholas's apartment room 2521 with an empty bottle of wine. Int. Apartment building, lobby, night. Nicholas walks in with Linda, holding waist to waist. They come to the elevator. Nicholas presses a button. The elevator's doors open. They get in and kiss. The elevator's doors close behind them. Int. Floor 25 corridor, night. Elizabeth remains sleeping on the floor. Int. Floor 25 corridor, elevator, night. The elevator's doors open revealing Nicholas and Linda making out with kiss. They part their lips, exit the elevator, holding arm to arm, and head to Nicholas's apartment. On the soundtrack, Half of My Heart continues to play melodiously. Then they see Elizabeth sleeping on the floor. Linda, who's that girl? Nicholas, she's my neighbor. He checks if she is alive. Nicholas, shaking her shoulder, hey. She makes a little mumbling sound. Nicholas, to Elizabeth, you're okay? Linda looks at the bottle. Linda, I think she's fucking wasted. Nicholas opens the door, carries Elizabeth. Int. Nicholas's apartment, living room, night. Nicholas takes Elizabeth to the apartment. Linda follows them, puts down her coat on the sofa, and waits at the living room as Nicholas continues to take Elizabeth to the bedroom. Bedroom. Nicholas comes to the bedroom, carrying Elizabeth, places her on his bed, and looks at her eyes for seconds. It seems Nicholas is falling head over heels in love with Sleeping Beauty. Nicholas then walks back to the living room. Living room. Linda walks toward the bar. Nicholas comes to the living room. Nicholas, to Linda, I'm sorry. You have to go. I will see you some other time. Linda, you're kidding. Nicholas, grabs her coat, I will make it up to you. Nicholas gives her the coat. Linda, we just got here. Nicholas, it is not a good time. I have to make sure she is okay. Nicholas escorts Linda to the door politely. Linda, you're kicking me out because of that slut. Nicholas, that's not it. I will take you out dinner some other time. I have a crush on her. Nicholas opens the door. They exit. Nicholas closes the door behind the screen. On the soundtrack, Is This Love by Bob Marley plays melodious. Int. Nicholas's apartment, bedroom, night. Close up, Elizabeth. She continues to sleep in beauty. Int. Nicholas's apartment, living room, night. Nicholas opens the door, enters, closes the door, and walks to the bedroom. Int. Bedroom, night. Close up, Elizabeth. She seems dreaming about the Garden of Eden, looks peaceful. Nicholas comes to the bedroom, stands at the door, looks at Elizabeth for a while. On the soundtrack, Is This Love continues to play melodiously. He then turns around and walks to his studio, leaving Elizabeth on the screen. Bedroom, later. Nicholas draws Elizabeth on a blotter with a pencil black and white while sitting on the floor. Close up, Elizabeth. She continues to dream about eternal sunshine of spotless mind. We stay with Elizabeth, Nicholas, and the painting with series cuts as he does her portrait. Int. Nicholas's apartment, morning. Samba Pati by Santana plays from a CD melodiously. Elizabeth wakes up with hangover. She sees a tulip next to her. She smiles softly, grabs the flower, and looks around. She doesn't know where she is. She gets up from the bed, and walks to the living room. Living room. Elizabeth sees the portrait of herself, sleeping in beauty, on the coffee table. It looks like a black and white photo. She's surprised, thinks the person, who did that drawing, must be exceptionally talented. Living room/kitchen. Nicholas is making breakfast, French toast and omelets. Elizabeth comes to kitchen. Nicholas looks at her. Nicholas, good morning. Elizabeth, morning. There is pause. He continues to prepare breakfast. Nicholas, breakfast is in its way. Have a seat. Elizabeth puts the flowers on the table, pulls a chair and sits in ease. Nicholas places the omelet and the French toast on a plate, opens the refrigerator, and takes out an orange juice. He pours the orange juice in a glass, puts the orange juice back in the refrigerator, and places the plate and the juice on a tray. Living room. Elizabeth looks around the house, turns her eyes, and sees Nicholas as he brings the meal. He places it in front of her. Elizabeth, I'm having the worst hangover ever. You got aspirin or something? Nicholas, I think so. Let me check. He walks to the bathroom. Elizabeth looks at the meal, grabs the French toast and takes a small bit, and put it back. She takes a sip from her orange juice, and waits for Nicholas, listening to Santana Samba Pati. Bathroom. Nicholas grabs Advil from the mirror box, closes the mirror, and returns to the living room. Living room. Elizabeth takes another sip from her orange juice. Nicholas comes to the living room. Nicholas, I only got Advil. Elizabeth, it's okay. He opens the top. Nicholas, gives her the medicine. You want a glass of water? Elizabeth, don't sweat it. I will take it with orange juice. She takes out 2 tablets as he sits in front of her. She places the pills in her mouth, and swallows the medicines with orange juice. Nicholas looks at her silently. She looks at him back. Wicked Game by Chris Isaak plays on the stereo melodiously, replacing Samba Pati. He then. Nicholas, you feel better? Elizabeth, ask me in about 10 minutes so. I'll give you an honest answer. He smiles softly. There is a pause. She then. Elizabeth, referring to her portrait, did you draw that? Nicholas, I saw you sleeping. You look so peaceful. I couldn't help it. She looks at it again. Elizabeth, it is marvelous. He says nothing. There is a pause. Elizabeth, are you an artist? He nods, yes. There is a silent moment. She continues to eat. He looks at her in wonder. She catches his eyes and gives him an alluring smile. He returns her smile charismatically. Meanwhile, Elizabeth listens to the song with interest. Elizabeth, is that Chris Isaak? Nicholas, nods yes. Wicked Games. There is a pause. They listen to the music quietly. She then. Elizabeth, singing with Chris Isaak. The world was on fire and no one could save me but you. It's strange what desire will make foolish people do. I'd never dreamed that I'd love somebody like you, and I'd never dreamed that I'd lose somebody like you. He smiles softly. Elizabeth, it must be one of the greatest love songs of all time. Nicholas, it is the greatest love song of all time. She gives him a soft smile. There is a pause. She continues to enjoy her meal. She then. Elizabeth, how did I get here? Nicholas, you don't remember anything? She shakes her head, no. Nicholas, I found you sleeping on the floor at my door, and took you to my apartment, and placed you on my bed. She gives him a soft smile. Elizabeth, why didn't you call 911, or just take me to my apartment? Nicholas, you can ask me that question after dinner on Saturday. Elizabeth, are you asking me out a date? Nicholas, who said anything about going out a date? Just good old-fashioned movie and dinner, you and me here in my apartment. There is a pause. Elizabeth, what are we going to watch? Nicholas, The Princess Bride. She smiles softly. Elizabeth, softly, I'll be here sharp 8 p.m. Nicholas, under his breath, as you wish. They look at each other's eye with love and seduction. On the soundtrack, Wicked Game plays with full volume. Elizabeth takes a sip without taking her eyes off him and puts down the glass. Then on the soundtrack, Straight Up by Paula Abdul plays mixed with dance beat energetically. Int. Fashion show Runaway, day. We see models walking on runway, pose after pose in series cuts. Int. Fashion show, backstage, day. Elizabeth is in the middle of dressing. A young man named Caleb, 27, is assisting her. He is sort of in touch with his feminine side. On the background, we see models dressing and changing and applying makeups and other things. Straight Up falls in the background of the soundtrack and plays softly. Elizabeth, why do men always think about sex? Caleb, they can help it. They are men, being men. Elizabeth, would you rather have a casual sex with someone whom you just meet or intimate sex with someone whom you have gone out with for a while? Caleb, it's a tough choice. Let me see. It's between a casual passionate sex with a stranger and an intimate sensual sex with someone you're going out. I think I'll go with a romantic sex with someone I have been dating for a while. But I don't mind turning the heat up with a stranger. Elizabeth, I have to admit men can be careless. And they are easy to please. On the contrary, we women are fastidious and more demanding than the devil when it comes to sex. And we go all out on bed. We don't hold anything. She puts a gold translucent silk gown that shows her entire skin. Caleb assists her. Elizabeth, this shows my vagina. Caleb, that's the whole idea behind a new sexual generation. It's fashion, squeeze. Elizabeth, I might as well go out naked and dance around the pole. At least that way, people get the message this is straight up sex. Caleb, I don't know if it's straight up sex. But I would love to watch you dance around the pole naked. She hits him playfully. There is a pause. Elizabeth comes to the mirror and looks at her image. Caleb grabs a makeup and begins to apply on her cheeks. She then. Elizabeth, you know, despite the fact all the confusion and the uncertainty that are going through in my head and this awful ache that is torturing my heart, I think I'm in love again. Caleb, who's he? Elizabeth, this artist next door. Caleb, is he cute? Elizabeth, he's super romantic. He invited me dinner at his apartment this Saturday. There is a silent moment. On the soundtrack, Straight Up by Paula Abdul continue to play melodiously. Elizabeth sings Straight Up with Paula Abdul as Caleb continues to apply a light makeup on her face. Caleb, humorously, are you going to sleep with him? She hits him playfully. Elizabeth, that's none of your business. They smile. On the soundtrack, This Is What You Came For by Calvin Harris featuring Rihanna plays hypnotically, replacing Paula Abdul Straight Up. Int. Fashion Runaway, day. Elizabeth takes a walk into the runway and poses. Camera lights flash from every angle. We then see Elizabeth on the runway posing with series cuts as we continue to hear, This Is What You Came For. She comes out of the dressing room, wearing all kinds of beautiful dresses, walks on the catwalk, and poses with sensuality, poise, seduction, and elegance, pose after pose. Int. Supermarket, day. Nicholas shops at a local supermarket with series cuts. He grabs lemons and places them in his shopping cart. He comes to the vegetable section, grabs a lettuce and a couple of tomatoes, and puts them in the cart. Nicholas buys salmon, etc. EXT garden, photo shoot, day. Elizabeth poses in a garden for a photographer named Ben. On the soundtrack, This Is What You Came For continues to play hypnotically. This time the photos show her erotic side in black and white. Then on the soundtrack, We Found Love by Rihanna featuring Calvin Harris plays melodiously. We stay with Elizabeth as she continues to pose in series cuts. Ben continues to photograph her as if he saw an angel of God that fell out of the sky. Int. Nicholas's apartment, kitchen, evening. Nicholas is cooking, making baked salmons. He applies the basic ingredient to salmons, light olive oil, salt, pepper, lemon juice, etc. Int. Elizabeth's apartment, bathroom, night. Elizabeth takes shower. Int. Nicholas's apartment, kitchen, night. Nicholas places the salmon in the oven, opens the refrigerator, and takes out onion, tomatoes, and lettuce. He places them on the kitchen table, closes the refrigerator, grabs a knife, and begins to make salad, slicing onion, cutting tomatoes, chopping lettuce, etc. On the soundtrack, We Found Love continues to play melodiously. Int. Elizabeth's apartment, bedroom, night. Elizabeth walks to the closet singing We Found Love with Rihanna while dancing in sensuality. The song is playing on her stereo as well. She takes out a red gown and places it on the bed, walks to the mirror, grabs a makeup, and applies on her lips. Int. Nicholas's apartment, living room, night. I Knew I Loved You by Savage Garden plays from a CD. A red rose in a vase. A candle. A bottle of red wine. 2 wine glasses. Nicholas places knives and forks on the table, and lights the candle with a box of match. Nicholas then hears doorbell. He comes to the door and opens it, revealing Elizabeth. Elizabeth, hi. Nicholas, hi. They kiss on the cheeks. He lets her in. She enters. Nicholas, you look gorgeous. Elizabeth, thanks. You look amazing yourself. Nicholas smiles softly, closes the door and escorts her to the dinner table. He pulls a chair for her. Elizabeth sits at the table. Nicholas grabs the wine. Nicholas, wine. Elizabeth, humorously, I prefer whiskey, but wine is good too. He smiles softly, opens the wine, and pours it in her glass. Elizabeth, thanks. Nicholas, you welcome. He puts the bottle on the table. Nicholas, I'll be right back. Elizabeth nods, okay. Nicholas walks to the kitchen. Int. Kitchen, night. Nicholas comes to the oven, opens it, and takes out the meal out, 2 plates of baked salmon with rice. He puts them on the kitchen table, closes the oven, grabs the plates, and brings them to the living room. Living room. Elizabeth gives him a soft smile. Nicholas places the first plate in front of her and puts the other plate on his side. Nicholas, let me get the salad. Elizabeth nods, okay. Nicholas walks back to the kitchen, leaving Elizabeth on the screen. Elizabeth looks at the food. Living room/kitchen. Nicholas takes out a bowl of salad from the refrigerator, closes the door with his foot, grabs biscuits from the kitchen table, and returns to the living room. Living room. Nicholas places the foods on the dinner table and sits in front of Elizabeth. Nicholas, humorously, go ahead. You can start. It's not here to eat you. It's the other way around. You are here to eat it? Elizabeth, I have no problem if it has any plan of eating me. I just hope you didn't cut its tongue. I would let it go down on me. Nicholas, I think I might have cut it by accident. But don't feel bad. You can leave that to me. I know more tricks than a lesbian that sells pussycats for charity. Elizabeth can't help but smile in beauty. Elizabeth, I thought lesbian was an offensive term to call a girl who is in relationship with a woman. Nicholas, I didn't know that. I will take it back. Elizabeth, they said, once it is out. You can't take it back. Nicholas, so, what do you call a girl who is in relationship with a woman? Is it Wonder Woman? She smiles softly. Elizabeth, I am fucking with you. Lesbian is fine. Nicholas, you are not lesbian, are you? Elizabeth, what do you think? Nicholas, I think you are the most gorgeous girl in the solar system. It doesn't matter whether you are lesbian from Lisbon, or an angel from heaven. I have never seen anything as beautiful as you. Elizabeth, thanks for the compliment. I am not a lesbian. But my friend is a lesbian. She used to tell me lesbian jokes. Nicholas, what lesbian jokes did she tell you? Elizabeth, I only remember one. Nicholas, what is it? Elizabeth, what does Santa get a lesbian for Christmas? Nicholas, I don't know, is it a lizard? She smiles softly. Elizabeth, no. Nicholas, it's a Barbie doll. Elizabeth, it's clothes. A Victoria's Secret angel. He smiles big. Nicholas, it's Christmas. Everybody gets to have fun. Elizabeth, referring the food anyway, what's it? Nicholas, baked salmon. Elizabeth, it looks delicious. Nicholas, wait till you taste it. It will make you forget all your troubles. Elizabeth cuts the fish with the knife and fork, takes a piece, munches, and eats it. She then. Elizabeth, it's scrumptious. Where did you learn to cook like this? Nicholas, Food Network. Elizabeth, I used to watch Food Network every now and then, but I didn't see anything delicious as this. He smiles proudly. She takes another bit, has a sip from her wine, and puts down her glass. Elizabeth, it's excellent. Nicholas, thanks. There is a silent moment. They eat quietly, listening to I Knew I Loved You by Savage Garden. She then. Elizabeth, referring the music, who's that? Nicholas, I Knew I Loved You by Savage Garden. There is a pause. Elizabeth, do you always invite girls and cook for them, or you pick them up and take them straight to the bed? He gives her a courteous smile. Nicholas, I like cooking first. Elizabeth, who was that girl came at your porch naked that day? Nicholas, she is a friend. Elizabeth, what do you mean by a friend? Nicholas, I just brought her for the sole purpose of painting. Elizabeth, you didn't bother to draw her underwear? Nicholas, she said she felt comfortable without them. I am not a politician. I don't tell people what to do. It's free country. I am an artist. I just go with the flow. Elizabeth, you don't mind if she is married? Nicholas, she is not married. Elizabeth, she is engaged. It is the same thing. Nicholas, she is lying. She just wanted to make you jealous. She doesn't even have a boyfriend. Elizabeth, whatever. Nicholas, did you see any ring on her finger? Elizabeth, I wasn't paying attention. Nicholas, she just likes to play with your emotion. She is an actress. Elizabeth, I am not here to judge you. Nicholas, humorously for a moment, I thought I was in a witness stand at a courtroom, being cross-examined by a beautiful district attorney. Elizabeth, if I was a district attorney, I would have asked you, did you sleep with her? Just answer yes or no. Nicholas, no. Elizabeth, you are lying under oath. That is perjury. You could go to prison for a long time. Nicholas, I don't mind serving time in your heart. But honest to God, she came to do a nude pose. I did her portrait and sent her home. Elizabeth, I believe you. Nicholas, why don't you tell me about yourself? Elizabeth, what do you want to know about me? Nicholas, I want to know what you like, what turns you on, when do you feel sexy the most? What is your favorite part of your body? Elizabeth, seductively ask me one at a time. Nicholas, what do you like? Elizabeth, I like to dance. Nicholas, what turns you on? Elizabeth, a man who knows how to treat a girl with love, passion, and respect. Nicholas, when do you feel sexy the most? Elizabeth, when I'm in love. Nicholas, what's your favorite part of your body? Elizabeth, I'll have to say my eyes. They change colors depend on the season. I was born with hazel blue eyes. Then they get teal hazel between light green and blue with a touch of gold brown around my pupils. And during winter, they turn into hazel turquoise. In the spring, they change to lime with the touch of amber. In the summer, they become greenish blue with a touch of hazel and gold. And in the fall, they turn back to hazel and sea green. Nicholas looks at her eyes. Nicholas, you do have beautiful eyes. Elizabeth, thanks. But I like my lips even more. They are very sensitive to the slightest kiss. Nicholas, I can see that. They look delicious. Elizabeth, do you want to kiss them? Nicholas, are they poisonous? Elizabeth, why don't you find out for yourself? She gets up, walks around the table, sits on his laps, puts her arms around, and gives him a juicy kiss with her tongue. They kiss French. On the soundtrack, Truly Madly Deeply by Savage Garden plays melodiously. Elizabeth and Nicholas kiss more intimately. She then parts her lips, gets down from his lap, and returns to her seat. They continue to eat while conversing without a sound. She says something humorous. He says something romantic. She smiles in beauty. We stay with them for a bit. EXT New York City, street, night. Nicholas and Elizabeth take a walk while talking. On the soundtrack, Truly Madly Deeply Savage Garden continues to play melodiously. It then lies on the background and plays softly like spring weather. All of a sudden, they get quiet, not even lip movement. He then. Nicholas, what do you do? Elizabeth, is that a trick question or you just want to get around this uncomfortable silent moment? Nicholas, both. Elizabeth, I'm a model. Nicholas, when did you start modeling? Elizabeth, when I was 14. I'm 22 now. I was discovered by this Vanity Fair photographer named George. He photographed me sitting on a water fountain. One thing led to another. I signed a contract with Ford Modeling Agency. I have been doing fashion and posing for magazines ever since. Nicholas, that's something. Elizabeth, when did you start painting? Nicholas, my whole life. Both my father and mother were painters. They gave me a brush before I know how to hold a spoon. Elizabeth, where are you from originally? Nicholas, I was born and raised here in New York City, Queens. But my mother is originally from Montreal, Canada. She died of breast cancer when I was 4. My father was heartbroken. He drank himself to death. You know, drank a bottle of whiskey, jumped from Brooklyn Bridge unhurt, swam for miles, and then drowned. When they finally found his body, he had swum 15 miles despite the fact he had higher blood alcohol level in his system than hell, which itself should have killed him. He had always loved her more than life itself. They stopped lips to lips. Elizabeth, I'm sorry to hear that. Nicholas, it's okay. We all have to go sometime. You know, like Emily Dickinson once said, because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me, the carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. They kiss French. On the soundtrack, Wicked Game by Chris Isaak plays melodiously. Int. Nicholas's apartment, bedroom, night. Nicholas and Elizabeth make love with series cuts. It's seductive, steamy, and passionate. They go at it with various sexual positions. Int. Nicholas's apartment studio, day/night. Elizabeth poses nude on the sofa, covering her vagina with a pink tulip. Nicholas paints her on a canvas. Int. Nicholas's apartment, bedroom, day/night. Nicholas and Elizabeth continue to make love with various erotic positions. Note, we do intercut between the love scene and the painting. Int. Nicholas's apartment, studio, day/night. Close up, Elizabeth. She continues to pose nude in sensuality. Nicholas continues to paint her. Int. Nicholas's apartment, bedroom, day/night. Nicholas and Elizabeth continue to make love. He is entering her deliciously. She is making all kinds of erotic sounds. Int. Nicholas's apartment, bathtub, night. Nicholas and Elizabeth sit in the bathtub while smoking weed. You and Me by Lifehouse plays on the stereo melodiously. He is behind. She is resting on his chest. Elizabeth, I'm trying to get a hold of my thoughts. A couple of years ago, I got into drugs. My life turned upside down. I went to rehab to stay focused, kicked the habit, and got back on my 2 feet. Things worked out fine for a while. I then fell in love with a married man. I knew it would never work out deep down in my heart, but pretended it didn't make any difference. I would just hold on to the feeling for a while and find happiness miraculously. I am not a homewrecker or anything, but this little girl, who didn't know the difference between right and wrong. However, I didn't want to be a person, who was going to be blamed for the breakup of a marriage, happy family, whatever they call it. And I knew it was time to let that guilty feeling go, and be true to myself. Sometimes, I feel this emptiness. There is always something missing in my life. I have never had peace of mind. Nicholas, we all feel empty some point of our lives. I don't usually believe in rational explanation or karma. But things have way of sorting themselves out by means of progress. Kisses her on shoulder, humorously, you know, like the Red Queen hypothesis species had to evolve in order to continue to exist. And this emptiness along with curiosity forces us to change and to act a certain way. Elizabeth, that's more than I need to know. He smiles softly and kisses her on the cheek. She turns and gives him her lips. They kiss French. On the soundtrack, Drops of Jupiter by Train plays melodiously. EXT New York City, street, commercial shooting, day. Elizabeth, wearing a Daisy Duke jeans, is in the middle of shooting commercial for Gap. She is standing next to a Corvette with a cup of coffee. There is a good-looking male model Michael, 26, standing next to Elizabeth. We see the director Jim, 38, sitting on the director chair, and giving the cinematographer instructions. We don't hear what they are saying due to the music on the soundtrack. A girl named Angela, 29, stands nearby with a take board. Meanwhile, we see the crew, extras, grips, and various cars, Mercedes, BMW, Toyota, Buick, Ford, Lexus, yellow taxi cabs, and others moving in the background. Drops of Jupiter plays softly. Angela, to Elizabeth, are you ready? Elizabeth nods yes, puts down her coffee on a camera equipment, and walks down the opposite side of the street. Elizabeth stands at the opposite side street, facing Michael. Angela, take 4. Angela smacks the board, and walks aside. Jim, action. Elizabeth and Michael look at each other, and try to cross the street. The cars move from right to left and left to right. Both Elizabeth and Michael ignore the cars, and walk toward each other, crossing the street. Some of the cars stop moving, and others turns their wheels, honking, and causing a mild chaos. Elizabeth approaches Michael, he comes to her. She throws her arms around him, he picks her up. She wraps her legs around him. They kiss in the middle of the traffic. Then a car comes at their direction. Michael, without looking at the car, turns his head slightly, takes his right leg behind his left leg like a soccer player, and stops the car with his foot. He then continues to kiss Elizabeth while carrying her. Close up, Elizabeth and Michael. They kiss more intimately. Jim looks at them on his screen. He then. Jim, cut. They break the kiss. Michael puts down Elizabeth on the ground. Jim, that's great. Let's do it again. This time, close up. Elizabeth shows a slight sign of frustration. On the soundtrack, Drops of Jupiter by Train plays with full volume. Int. Nicholas's apartment, studio, day. Nicholas is finishing the portrait of Elizabeth. He then puts down his brush, grabs his cigarettes box, takes out a cigarette and walks toward the porch. EXT Nicholas's apartment, porch, day. Nicholas comes up to the porch, lights his cigarette, takes a drag, and exhales the smoke, looking at the spectacular view of New York City. EXT Cafe and Restaurant, day. Nicholas sits at a table outside sitting area, waiting for Elizabeth while drinking a can of Coke. There are few customers sitting at tables and enjoying their lunches. Then out of nowhere comes Elizabeth and walks to Nicholas. Drops of Jupiter falls in the background of the soundtrack. It would fade away. Elizabeth, hi. Before he says a word, she sits on his lap and kisses him. Elizabeth, softly, what's up? Nicholas, under his breath, nothing much. They kiss French. Elizabeth, softly down by his lips, did you miss me? Nicholas, you have no idea. She kisses him. They kiss more intimately and part their lips as the waitress named Jacqueline comes to their table. Jacqueline, how can I serve you? Nicholas, what do you want? Elizabeth, I'll just have a turkey sandwich. Nicholas, that'll make you sleep. They kiss. Elizabeth, it's okay. I'm kind of having sleeping disorder. I swear to God the whole day, I have been hearing my little voice inside my head telling me what to do, and this negative spirit building up in my brain. I need to take a nap anyway. Nicholas, if you say so. They exchange soft kisses. Nicholas, without looking at the menu, to Jacqueline, I'll just have spaghetti. Number 11. Jacqueline takes the menu. Jacqueline, to Elizabeth, anything to drink? Elizabeth, a glass of red wine. Jacqueline looks at Nicholas. Nicholas, same. Jacqueline, I'll be with you in a minute. Jacqueline walks away. Elizabeth and Nicholas kiss. Close up, Elizabeth and Nicholas. They kiss French and part their lips. Elizabeth, what did you do the whole day? Nicholas, nothing unusual. Elizabeth, what do you mean nothing unusual? Nicholas, I finished few paintings here and there, took a cold shower, and came straight here. Elizabeth, I don't believe you. Nicholas, why is that? Elizabeth, I can smell your pheromone. You smell like sex. He smiles softly. They kiss French, part their lips, and talk between soft kisses. Nicholas, how is your day? Elizabeth, I walked out from the set of Gap commercial. Nicholas, how come? Elizabeth, confusion. Nicholas, what confusion? Elizabeth, I just couldn't focus. Worrying about where my life should be heading. They exchange soft kisses. Nicholas, you don't have to worry about that. It's heading the right direction. I have faith on you. Elizabeth, plus, I am trying to quit smoking. But the craving couldn't let me breathe for a minute. I had to tell the director that I was about to die, and ran out of the set. Nicholas, I am sorry to hear that. Elizabeth, it's okay. I couldn't wait to see you anyway. They kiss French. On the soundtrack, Yellow, by Coldplay plays melodiously. EXT restaurant, day. The food has already been served. Elizabeth and Nicholas are not really eating. They have barely touched their meals. In fact, they are done eating. They are talking while drinking their wines. But we don't hear what they are saying due to Yellow. She is sitting in front of him. He must have said something romantic. She smiles in beauty, gets up from her chair, and sits on his laps. They talk between soft kisses. Then the music on the soundtrack falls in the background and plays softly. Elizabeth, I'll call my agent and tell him I had asthma, that I can't do anything for a week. And then we will go out and have fun. Nicholas, under his breath, that sounds good. Elizabeth, I want to go to the club and sweat this negative energy out of my system and give you few ideas what I can do on the dance floor. Nicholas, no doubt you are the best. But do you have asthma? Elizabeth, why did you ask? You don't like a girl with asthma? Nicholas, humorously, I love a girl with asthma. Kisses her on the lips, but is it contagious? Elizabeth, I doubt it. Nicholas, nevertheless, I didn't want you to get sick. They exchange soft kisses. Elizabeth, thanks for the concern. But I don't have asthma. I know this girl who had asthma. I shared room with her the Upper East Side few years ago. She is a model, always comes up with all kinds of excuses to ditch work. She then would go out shopping spree with her friends, or fool around with her boyfriend. I picked up a couple of tricks from her. Nicholas, what if you get in trouble? Elizabeth, I won't get in trouble. They exchange soft kisses. Do you want to have sex? Nicholas, no. Elizabeth, let's do it in the bathroom. Nicholas, as you wish. They kiss French. On the soundtrack, All That She Wants by Ace of Base plays melodiously. Int. Restaurant, bathroom, day. Elizabeth and Nicholas have sex in the bathroom. We stay with them for a bit. Int. Club, night. It's a big nightclub. We see hundreds of people dancing as if there were no tomorrow. On the soundtrack, All That She Wants continues to play melodiously. Nicholas and Elizabeth dance in the middle of the crowd. They then kiss French. On the soundtrack, Where Do You Go by No Mercy comes replacing All That She Wants. Int. Nicholas's apartment, bedroom, night. Nicholas and Elizabeth make love with series cuts. It's sensual, steamy, and passionate. We stay with them as they go at it with very sexual positions. Int. Club, night. Nicholas and Elizabeth continue to dance in the middle of sensual extravaganza. Elizabeth doesn't hold anything. She just gets lost at the bottom of her heart, dancing in sensuality, touching herself as if she were possessed by erotic demons. Nicholas allows her to dance freely, give her more space. But she doesn't want to part from him, gets closer and dances inside him. They dance as if they were making love in their hearts. Int. Bedroom, night. Elizabeth and Nicholas continue to make love with various erotic positions as if they invented sex. We stay with them for a while. Int. Nicholas's apartment, living room, night. Nicholas and Elizabeth sit in the bathtub that is placed in the middle of the living room while watching 9½ starring Kim Basinger and Mickey Rourke on a film projector. Meanwhile, Losing My Religion by REM plays on the stereo. He is behind. She is resting on his chest, wearing Victoria's Secret nightgown. Elizabeth knows the lyrics. She sings Losing My Religion with REM. She seems high with love. Then on the projector comes the part where Kim Basinger strips with You Can Leave Your Hat On by Joe Cocker. Elizabeth gets out of the tub and begins to dance imitating Kim Basinger, except she is wet. And she is dancing with Losing My Religion, while singing and moving her body in sensuality. Nicholas can't help but fall deeply in love with her. He watches her in wonder. Then Come Undone by Duran Duran plays on the stereo. Elizabeth begins to strip, removing her wet nightgown in seduction, while singing Come Undone with Duran Duran. In the background, we see Kim Basinger dancing in 9½. But Elizabeth steals the show, dancing nude while shaking her butts in allurement, stirring her hips in temptation, and touching her body in tenderness and eroticism. She then returns to bathtub and falls on Nicholas's chest naked. They kiss French. Close up, Nicholas and Elizabeth. They kiss more intimately. Int. Bedroom, night. Nicholas and Elizabeth make love. It's steamy. We stay with them for a little bit. Int. Beach, morning. Nicholas and Elizabeth kiss lying naked in a sleeping bag. She is on the bottom. He is leaning next to her. The sun hasn't raised yet. They then part their lips and looks at the sun as it breaks the cloud, scatters across the sky, and breezes on the ocean. Elizabeth is not interested on the sun. She pulls him closer. They resume kissing. Int. Nicholas's art gallery show, night. We see Nicholas's paintings on display, portraits beautiful and exotic naked girls. They look like photographs. The guests enjoy the paintings with glasses of champagne and refreshments. On the soundtrack, music plays melodiously. Nicholas is talking to an attractive woman named Gabriella, 31. She is his art dealer, perhaps the only connection to the outside world. Gabriella, I sold almost everything. I'll write you a check tomorrow. Nicholas, thanks. They kiss on the cheeks. Gabriella, enjoy the show. Nicholas, I'll see you around. They begin to walk separate ways. Gabriella quickly then turns back and calls him. Gabriella, Nick. Nicholas turns his attention back to her. Gabriella, are you available later for dinner, in case if I bring along few guests who might want to make you a richer artist than you are tonight? Nicholas, I'm afraid I can't. I had a date with Elizabeth. Gabriella, flirtatiously, when are we going to get together and works on our friendship? You have not been the same since you met Elizabeth. He smiles at her softly. Pan to, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is in the middle of conversing with a girl named Tina Ray, 24, her roommate. She is tall, sexy, and beautiful. She was in Paris, modeling. That's why we hadn't seen her. They are standing next to the nude portrait to Elizabeth, covering her private part with a tulip. Tina, I went to see my dermatologist the other day for the mole I had here on my shoulder. He told me that I had a skin cancer. Elizabeth, you are kidding. Tina, he said it is not melanomas, a serious skin cancer. Nonetheless, they will remove it next Monday. Elizabeth, I'm sorry to hear that. Tina takes a sip. Tina, anyway, I broke up with Eric. Elizabeth, how come? Tina, he had vasectomy. Elizabeth, what is vasectomy? Tina, it's the surgical cutting and sealing of part of each vas deferens, the duct that conveys sperm from the testicle to the urethra, usually to attain sterilization. He said it was a safe way to prevent him from impregnating me. Elizabeth, that's fucked up. Tina, I will tell you more about it. Let me run to the restroom. I have to take a piss. I'll be right back. Tina excuses Elizabeth, and walks toward the ladies' restroom, leaving Elizabeth on top of the screen. Then out of nowhere comes a handsome man named Stanley, 34, to Elizabeth with 2 glasses of champagne. Stanley, looking at the portrait of Elizabeth, quotes Khalil Gibran. Beauty is eternity gazing at itself in a mirror. Turns to Elizabeth. Hi, I'm Stanley. He gives her a glass. She takes it. Elizabeth, Elizabeth. Stanley, cheers. They connect their glass and have sips. There is a pause. They look at the painting. He then. Stanley, you are model, aren't you? Elizabeth, something like that. Stanley, I know it sounds sentimental, but you know how they said, men are from Mars. Women are from Venus, but I believe there are those who came straight from heaven, except angel is understatement to describe a radiant girl like you. Elizabeth, I don't believe you. Stanley, you are what the Shakespeareans call Ophelia, as the expression of a great beauty. Out of nowhere appears a carnation on Stanley's hand. He gives her the flower. Stanley, the most underrated flower, just because of its name, carnation. It doesn't usually get the credit it deserves, despite the fact it's the most exquisite flower of them of all. She can't help but smile in beauty. Stanley, suppose it's called blood drop of bliss. Would any girl cover her vagina with a tulip but carnation? Elizabeth looks at Nicholas walking through the crowd. Elizabeth, excuse me. She gives Stanley the champagne back and walks toward Nicholas as he approaches her. Nicholas, hi. Elizabeth, hi. She throws her arms around his neck. They kiss. Elizabeth, how did it go? Nicholas, she sold most of the paintings. Elizabeth, that is good. A lot of people are saying you are better than Picasso. Nicholas, we are 2 different artists. His style is called analytic cubism. My style is photographic illusion. Elizabeth, what is photographic illusion? Nicholas, to paint as good as photographs. Each detail is important. That's why most people think they are photographs. Elizabeth, you are gifted. Nicholas, maybe. But if you put your mind to it, anything is possible. Elizabeth, you took it a step ahead of everybody. I have never seen anybody paint like this. You should be proud of yourself. Nicholas, I am only proud when I am with you. She smiles in beauty. They exchange soft kisses. Nicholas, anyway, who was that man you were talking to? Elizabeth, Stanley. Nicholas, what does Stanley want? They exchange soft kisses. Elizabeth, he was kind of making pass on me, but gave me this flower, carnation. This audio file was created by Panopreter Basic, You can download it at www.panopreter.com. He said it's one of the most underrated flowers. He wanted call it the blood drop of bliss. He takes the flower, and puts it where her left ear and head meet. Nicholas, the blood drop of bliss sounds innovative. Humorously. But you want me to kick his ass. Elizabeth, why would you want to do that? Nicholas, it's because you're my girl, and he is trying to steal you away from me. They exchange soft kisses. Elizabeth, you're a lover, not a fighter. Nicholas, you are the only girl in the world who makes a warrior out of a lover. And a best French kisser out of a warrior. She smiles in beauty. They kiss French. Int. Restaurant, night. Elizabeth and Nicholas sit at a table with glass of wines, talking. On the stage, a girl named Raquel sings Edith Piaf's Hymn à l'amour. Elizabeth takes a sip and puts down her glass. Elizabeth, I'm giving modeling a second thought. Nicholas, how come? Elizabeth, switching into acting like Kate Upton and Cara Delevingne. Nicholas, if that is what you want to do, don't let anything stop you. Elizabeth, my agent wants me to move to Los Angeles and meet his stepbrother who is a major producer. He said they can get me better roles in Hollywood than mainstream independent movies here in New York City. But I don't want to go anywhere without you. Nicholas, I can come and visit you. Elizabeth, it's not the same. I don't want to get myself into a long relationship, or another ruinous relationship that leaves me with awful heartache. I need you by my side on a daily basis. Nicholas, I don't know if I can leave New York permanently. I've lived all my life here in Manhattan and Queens for 28 years. Sometime I think I might die if I ever set feet where the sun rises on the wrong side of the ocean. Elizabeth, that's not a good excuse. Why don't you look at the bright side? The weather is always beautiful in LA. They have a lot of beaches, and you don't have to deal with this cold New York weather in the middle of March. Nicholas, you got point. But I still have to take care of a lot of things here. I can't just pick up my stuff and move to Wild West. I have to conform with Gabriella. She is my only connection to the outside world. She picks up French fried and feeds him. He eats from her hand. Elizabeth, I have already talked to her. She said she knew a man, her former colleague. He would get you started without a delay. He gives her his hand. She takes his hand, gets up, walks around the table, and sits on his lap. Nicholas, we'll talk about it after you get back from Paris. They exchange soft kisses. Elizabeth, one thing, the sun always sets in the right side of the ocean in California. He smiles softly. Nicholas, I know. They kiss French. On the soundtrack, Amazing, by Seal plays melodiously. Int. Victoria's Secret Fashion Show, Paris, Day. Models walk on runway wearing Victoria's Secret nightgowns. On the stage, Seal sings Amazing. Camera lights flash on the angels like Christmas in heaven. Down the stage, celebrities, elites, the cream of the crops, and elites sit enjoying the show. Then out of nowhere comes Bill to the front row, and sits next to an attractive girl named Melissa, 23. They kiss on the cheeks. Bill sits next to Melissa and begins to watch the show. Int. Backstage, Day. Elizabeth, wearing a seductive Victoria's Secret gown and wings, stand in the middle of models, designers, makeup artists, hairstylists, and others. Caleb is applying a light makeup on Elizabeth's face as an assistant secures the wings on her back, lacing the ties dexterously. Int. Victoria's Secret Fashion Show, Paris, Day. Seal continues to sing. The models continue to walk on the catwalk as if they owned Paris, the city of lights. Then Elizabeth comes out from the backstage, looking like daylight. She walks down the catwalk with confidence. She then sees Bill. Her smile disappears. She takes a walk down the catwalk, stops, does a pose, and tries to collect her composure but totally loses her focus. Elizabeth turns and walks back to the stage faster than usual. She comes to the entrance, turns, and looks at Bill one more time. As she turns back, she sees a fellow model making her way to the runway. Elizabeth walks back to give her space. But there is nothing to support her left foot. She slips, and falls right down by the backstage. Main stage/backstage. Elizabeth screams. Everybody stops what they were doing and looks at her. Caleb runs to help her. The models hold their mouths in shock. She is crying. Caleb approaches her. Caleb, don't move. Elizabeth must have broken her leg. She cries with pain. The crowd circles her. Caleb, stay still. To the gathered crowd. Someone, call paramedics. Caleb tries to do everything that he knows to her but seems he doesn't really know what to do. Caleb, don't move. Elizabeth continues to cry in pain. The fashion coordinator excuses the crowd in French and comes to aid her. Fashion coordinator, checks her leg. I think you might have broken your leg. I'll get the paramedics. He gets up and calls paramedics in French. Meanwhile, Bill comes to the circle. Bill, is she okay? He looks at her in tenderness. She looks at him and closes her eyes in defeat. 2 tears escape from her eyes and fall on the side of her face sparklingly. On the soundtrack, Mozart's K550 plays melodiously. We see everything around Elizabeth in slow motion, then in fast forward, and flashback and superimpose with Elizabeth memorable scenes, artistic and chaotic take like Madonna ray of light. Then, Two paramedics come to the backstage with stretcher and first aid, excusing the crowd who is standing in confusion. The crowd moves aside. The paramedics approach Elizabeth and tie her legs carefully as Bill, Caleb, models, and other watch in sympathy. Meanwhile, the fashion coordinators try to break the crowd and get the show going as the paramedics continue to help Elizabeth. The paramedics then lift her up, put her on the medical stretcher, and carried her toward the direction of the camera. Int. Hospital, emergency room, Paris, day. Elizabeth is in the emergency room, lying with cast while talking to Nicholas on her cell phone. Elizabeth, don't worry. I'm fine, can't wait to see you. I missed you. Pause, listening. Elizabeth, they said it'll take about 11 weeks to heal. Pause, listening. Elizabeth, it's okay. You don't have to come. EXT New York Nicholas's apartment, porch, day. Standing on the porch, Nicholas continues to talk to Elizabeth on the phone. Pause. He smiles softly. Nicholas, I'll think something. Pause, listening. Nicholas, I love you too. Pause, listening. Nicholas, okay. Pause. Nicholas, bye. He hangs up the phone. Int. Hospital, emergency room, Paris, day. Elizabeth hangs up the phone too. Then Dr. Lucien Jonquit walks in with her x-rays. Dr. Jonquit, bonjour. Elizabeth, bonjour. Dr. Jonquit, CAVA? Elizabeth, CAVA bien. He places her x-ray on the x-ray board. Dr. Jonquit, I'll sign your release as soon as I get the latest evaluation. You'll be out of here before supper today. Elizabeth, thanks. Dr. Jonquit, you will get better soon. Elizabeth, I will keep my fingers crossed. Dr. Jonquit, adieu. Elizabeth, bye. He walks away. Then, Bill walks in with flowers. She looks at him. Bill, bonjour. Elizabeth, hi. He comes up to her, kisses her on the cheek, and gives her the flowers. She takes the flowers and puts them on a small table. Bill, how you holding? Elizabeth, fine. Pause. Bill, when are they going to discharge you? Elizabeth, today. I'm leaving Saturday. Bill, what you doing tomorrow? Elizabeth, nothing. Pause. He walks up and down, turns, and approaches to her. Bill, I will pick you up from your hotel 6:30 p.m. I'm taking you out whether you like it or not. She is unmoved. At the same time, she doesn't oppose as his gaze meets her gaze painfully. He gets closer and kisses her on the forehead. Bill, softly I love you. She doesn't say anything. On the soundtrack, French music plays melodiously. Int. Restaurant, night. Elizabeth, utilizing crutches, and Bill walk in. The headwaiter approaches them. Headwaiter, yes, monsieur. Bill, I reserved a table. Bill Smith. Headwaiter, yes, Monsieur Smith. Right this way. The headwaiter leads them to a table. They come in the middle of the restaurant. The headwaiter pulls a chair for Elizabeth. Bill takes her crutches, and helps her to sit. He puts her crutches aside and sits in front of her. Bill, 2 champagne cocktails. The headwaiter, yes, monsieur. The headwaiter walks away. They look at the menus for seconds. Then a French waitress named Sophie comes to their table. Sophie, in French what can I get you? Bill, in French I'll have the number 7. Sophie looks at Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I'll just have pasta. In French, number 12. He takes the menus. Sophie, in French I'll be with you in 3 minutes. Sophie walks away. There is a pause. On the soundtrack, French song continues to play melodiously. Bill, are you still mad at me? Elizabeth, if I was mad at you, I wouldn't be here sitting and talking to you. Bill, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come to the show. I feel bad. Elizabeth, don't sweat it. Pain happens. It's not your fault. There is a pause. Bill, I want you back, Liz. I made a big mistake. I shouldn't have let you go. Elizabeth, I'm with someone. Bill, who is he? Elizabeth, this cute guy who lives next door. Bill, what does he do? Elizabeth, he is a great artist. There is a silent moment. They gaze at each other quietly. On the soundtrack, another French song plays melodiously. Then Sophie returns to their table with their champagne cocktails, places the drinks in front of them, and says something in French. Bill, merci. Sophie, merci beaucoup. She walks away. There is a pause. They look at each other's eyes more. Bill takes a sip. He then. Bill, my wife and I are getting divorced. She's keeping the house. I'm getting child custody and perhaps moving to Paris. And if things don't work out between you and your boyfriend, I'll wait for you. Elizabeth, sure. Take a sip from her drink. But don't wait for long. They said, life is short. We never know when we're going to die. He smiles softly. Bill, it's true. Life got me where it wants me, against the ropes. I am taking a serious beating like Christ, and my heart thinks I might have gone crazy. I have no peace of mind without you. I have to get away from the ropes, float like a butterfly, and sting like a bee like Muhammad Ali. Once I conquer my enemies, I would make plan to win your love back. Till then you get well and remain glorious. No pain will take the light away from your beauty. She can't help but smile softly. Elizabeth, that kind of rhymes. Bill, you think so? I had a good memory. Life got me against the ropes, where it wants me. I am taking a serious beating like Christ who seeks passion rather than glory, and my heart thinks I am crazy. I have no peace of mind without you, honey. I have to get away from the ropes, float like a butterfly, and sting like a bee like Muhammad Ali. Once I conquer my enemies, I would make plan to win your love back and never let you out of my sight from eternity. Till then you get well and remain resplendent. No pain will take the light away from your beauty. Elizabeth, that's not bad. There is a pause. He gazes at her eyes softly. Bill, you look more enchanting than ever. You have a beautiful inner glow. What's your secret? Elizabeth, contemptuously just enjoying life. Bill, can't you forgive me, Liz? I just want you to be happy. And nothing makes me feel more alive than seeing you smile. Elizabeth, thanks. That means a lot to me. I gave you my life. And in return, I got nothing. So, don't try to make me feel guilty. You were never there when I need you the most. So laid back, and relax. Let's share a silent moment for a while till I'm in the mood for love. She takes a sip. On the soundtrack, Set Fire to the Rain by Adele plays melodiously. EXT airplane, moving, day. An airplane travels in the air. Int. Airplane, moving, day. Close up, Elizabeth. She looks through the window, lost deep in a thought. Int. Airport, day. Airline terminal. Nicholas is waiting for Elizabeth. He looks at the arriving people. Then Elizabeth comes with crutches through the crowd. He looks at her. She sees him as well. Elizabeth moves towards Nicholas. He approaches her. She drops her crutches. They cuddle and kiss intimately. Elizabeth, I missed you. Nicholas, I missed you too. They kiss more intimately. On the soundtrack, Set Fire to the Rain, continues to play melodiously. EXT airport, day. Nicholas, carrying Elizabeth, comes up to a taxi. An airport attendant follows them behind while pushing Elizabeth's luggage. Nicholas and Elizabeth kiss. The taxi driver steps out of his taxi, comes around and opens the rear door for them. Nicholas puts down Elizabeth on the floor, and slowly helps her as she slides through the door and sits occupying all the back seat. Int. Taxi, moving, day. Taxi driver is behind the wheel. Nicholas sits in the passenger seat while talking to Elizabeth who is sitting in the back alone. We don't hear what they are saying due to the music on the soundtrack. EXT taxi, moving, day. Medium of shot of the taxi, moving in the street of New York. EXT convertible car, moving, sunset. A 2015 Chrysler Sebring Gold convertible. Nicholas is behind the wheel. Elizabeth is in the back seat. They are driving in the middle of nowhere as the twilight scatters across the skies. Montage. On the soundtrack, In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel plays melodiously. A. Remote resort. Nicholas and Elizabeth sit at a table next to a swimming pool, talking while eating breakfast. B. Elizabeth, using her crutches, and Nicholas take a walk in the beach at daytime. C. Resort, restaurant. Elizabeth and Nicholas sit at a table outside sitting area in the twilight, conversing while sipping wines. D. Physical therapy room. Nicholas helps Elizabeth to walk without the crutches. E. Nicholas's porch, Elizabeth stands smoking in the middle of the day. Nicholas comes to the porch and gives her a soft kiss on the lips. Then out of nowhere, he takes out a baby dog and gives her the puppy. Elizabeth smiles in beauty. She kills a cigarette and takes the puppy. They kiss French. F. Supermarket, Elizabeth, sitting on the shopping cart with her legs straight, and Nicholas, pushing the shopping cart, move down the aisle. Meanwhile, Nicholas places a variety of items in the cart. G. Nicholas's kitchen, Elizabeth and Nicholas cook in ease. On the soundtrack, Everything I Do by Bryan Adams plays melodiously. H. Nicholas's apartment. Nicholas and Elizabeth sits at the table and have dinner. I. Nicholas opens champagne, pours the champagne in the glasses. Nicholas and Elizabeth cheer and take sips. J. Nicholas's apartment. Elizabeth and Nicholas sit on the floor with a bottle of wine, popcorns, and cookies, watching Pretty Woman, starring Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. They then kiss French. K. Living room. Nicholas, carrying Elizabeth like a bride, dances with Everything I Do by Bryan Adams. Her arms are around his neck. They are having a lot of fun. They then kiss French. Int. Elizabeth's apartment, party, night. A small house party is in progress. Models, producers, agents, managers, and others mingle while sipping various alcoholic beverage and enjoying refreshments. Elizabeth talked to two female models. Shoot by Salt and Peppa plays from a CD. Model 1, they said it was Natasha who pushed you at the runaway. Elizabeth, that is not true. I slipped and fell while walking back to make way for her. Model 2, poor Natasha. She didn't leave her room for a week, fearing the media would crucify her. Elizabeth, it was not her fault. Model 1, when are they going to take that cast off your feet? Elizabeth, this coming Tuesday. It itches like a bitch. Elizabeth turns her eyes and looks at the direction of Nicholas. Nicholas converses with Linda, who is standing with a glass of champagne. Linda, they said, once you're wild at heart. You'll always be wild at heart. Nicholas, I guess. Pause, he has nothing to add. Linda, I thought you were gonna make it up to me. I shouldn't have believed you. You like playing game with girls' hearts. Nicholas smiles at her politely. Nicholas, under his breath, I'll make it up to you. Nicholas turns his eyes and looks at Elizabeth, who is walking toward the porch with her crutches. Nicholas, politely, excuse me. I have to go. Nicholas gives Linda a kiss on the cheek. He walks toward Elizabeth. On the soundtrack, Crazy for You by Madonna plays melodiously. Close up, Nicholas. He continues to walk toward the porch. Then out of nowhere comes Gabriella through the crowd and stops Nicholas midway. Gabriella, Nick, I had good news for you. I talked to Jake. He said he got you a studio in Burbank. And my sister said she would love to have you for a while. She wants you to stay in her house at Beverly Hills till you find a place. Nicholas, thanks. But I don't want to bother her. Elizabeth and I get everything under control. Her agent said he found us a place in Malibu. The camera pulls away from Nicholas and Gabriella as they continue to talk. On the soundtrack, Crazy for You continues to play melodiously. EXT Elizabeth's apartment, porch, night. Elizabeth stands in the porch, looking at the city of New York. Then, Nicholas steps out of the living room and stands next to her. She looks at him in tenderness. Crazy for You lies in the background of the soundtrack and plays softly. Nicholas, what's up? Elizabeth, nothing much. Nicholas, how are you? Elizabeth, I'm fine. They exchange soft kisses. Nicholas, are you having fun? Elizabeth, girls would rather have sex than fun. Nicholas, I thought sex is fun. Elizabeth, it is fun till you reach orgasms. Then it becomes pleasure. You take it to the next level. And most girls can't separate love with sex, and sex with love. Nicholas, is there a difference between love and sex? Elizabeth, ironically, there is not much different between love and sex. Love is emotional climax of the mind, heart, and soul. Sex is the spiritual expression of passion that gives mystical dimension to love. Nicholas, I didn't know that. Elizabeth, anyway, I love New York so much. I'm having a second thought about moving to California. It scares me to death. Nicholas, so, let's stay here in New York. I'll cook for you 5 days a week. We go out, and do something original the remaining 2 days. Elizabeth smiles softly. Elizabeth, that's quite tempting, but I need to have other places to go and explore. I'm trying to find things that are different than anything I've done, just to show my abilities. You know, where I can kind of push the envelope a little bit farther. Nicholas, in that case, let's do it. I think the world is ready for you. Elizabeth, you really think so? Nicholas, I know so. She smiles softly. They kiss French. On the soundtrack, Crazy for You continues to play melodiously. Elizabeth, softly, Nick. Nicholas, under his breath, what is it? Elizabeth, I want you to know you're the only person that I've ever loved with all my heart and soul. They kiss. Elizabeth, I love you. Nicholas, down by her lips, I love you too. They kiss more intimately. Elizabeth, make love to me. They kiss French. He then picks her up, and takes her to the apartment, joining lips to lips. Int. Elizabeth's apartment, night. Nicholas, carrying Elizabeth, walks through the crowd as they continue to kiss. Int. Elizabeth's apartment, bedroom, night. Nicholas and Elizabeth, who still has a cast on her leg, make love with Crazy for You. It's sensual, seductive, and steamy. We stay with them for a bit. Then on the soundtrack, California Love by Tupac featuring Dr. Dre plays melodiously. EXT California, beach, day. Nicholas, who is wearing basketball short, and Elizabeth, who is wearing bikini, run down the beach, on the shoreline. Elizabeth is chasing Nicholas, who is running leisure. He gets in the Pacific Ocean. Elizabeth jumps on Nicholas just as he turns around. He catches her in the air. They kiss and fall in the water, having time of their lives. They fight playfully and kiss French. EXT beach, day. Elizabeth and Nicholas swim in the Pacific Ocean. They get closer and kiss French. EXT beach, sunset. Elizabeth and Nicholas sit on the beach, watching the sunset. He turns his eyes and catches Elizabeth's eyes. She gives him a soft, seductive smile. They get closer and kiss intimately. On the soundtrack, Vogue, by Madonna plays replacing California Love. Int. Fashion show, day. Models walk on the runway. Camera lights flash from every angle like the stars in Heaven Gone Wild. Then Elizabeth comes out from the backstage, walks down the catwalk, and strikes poses. Camera lights continue to flash like snowflakes caught on lightning. We then see Elizabeth as she poses with series cuts. EXT beach, day. Close up, Elizabeth. She poses on the beach for Vanity Fair. Jimmy, a stylish photographer, takes her picture. We stay with Elizabeth in series cuts as she continues to pose, one take after another, sensual, seductive, beautiful, provocative, alluring, sexy, enchanting, etc. Int. Alexander McQueen fashion show, night. We see Elizabeth dancing in hologram. The cream of the crops, elites, and celebrities sit at the front row and watch the show in awe. We stay with her for a bit. Int. Hollywood, Elizabeth's movie, day. We see a motion picture Forbidden Romance starring Elizabeth. Screen. EXT ship, moving, day. An established shot of a ship moving on the ocean. EXT ship, promenade deck, sunset. Elizabeth and a good-looking man named Kevin, 30, talk a stroll conversing. Kevin, the grand essentials of happiness are, something to do, something to love, and something to hope for. Elizabeth, who said that? Kevin, Alexander Chalmers. Elizabeth, I have never heard of him. Kevin, he was a Scottish writer, born March 29, 1759 and died December 29, 1834 at the age of 75. Elizabeth, 75 is not a bad age to kick the bucket. Kevin, maybe, but if you drive 75 miles per hour from Venice to Tuscany, you'll get there in 2 hours. Elizabeth, what's in Tuscany? Kevin, Florence. The most romantic city in the world. Elizabeth, I thought Venice was the most romantic city in the world. I could be wrong. Kevin, no doubt. Venice is one of the most romantic cities in the world. It's where two strangers fall in love deeply and kiss in the gondola. But Florence is where they find themselves bound by mystery, make love till they are out of breath, and change the fate of their hearts forever. She smiles in beauty. Elizabeth, anyway, what did you say? The grand essentials of happiness: something to love, something to hope, and what were the first one? Kevin, something to do. Elizabeth, what do you do? Kevin, I'm a businessman. I own a little bar somewhere in French Riviera. Elizabeth, where is it? Kevin, Con. They stop walking and stand lips to lips. Elizabeth, I thought you were a seducer, or maybe a common thief who charms a girl and steals her heart. Kevin, softly down by her lips, no. I'm only a man, who can't help falling in love with a girl that is hypnotic as a rose in garden of endless love. They kiss. The screen zooms out gradually. We find Elizabeth and Kevin behind green screen kissing on artificial ship inside a Hollywood studio. We then see the director Matt Penn, 39, behind the camera and the crew. Matt, cut. Elizabeth and Kevin break the kiss. Matt, that's marvelous. Let's wrap it for today. Elizabeth and Kevin walk toward the direction of the camera while conversing. Kevin, what you're doing tonight? Elizabeth, I have a date with my boyfriend. Kevin, we should get together sometimes and talk about stuffs that dreams are made of. Elizabeth, smiles softly, I look forward to it. They walk into the camera, blacking the screen. Int. Spanish bar, night. It's seductive 5 stars bar. On the stage, a man named Diego sings Julio Iglesias's Que Nadie Sepa Mi Sufrir. We see a couple of customers sitting at the table and enjoying their outings. There are a couple of patrons dancing on the dance floor. Nicola sits at a table with a glass of wine, waiting for Elizabeth. Then Elizabeth walks in a beautiful yellow gown. Nicholas looks at her. She looks at him. He gets up from his chair. She approaches him and throws her arms around his neck. He holds her dearly. They kiss French. Elizabeth, what's up? Nicholas, nothing much. He pulls a chair for her. She sits at the table. Nicholas takes his seat. Nicholas, you look like this thing, I couldn't quite put it down in words. Elizabeth, what's it? Nicholas, lemon fever. She smiles in beauty. Elizabeth, I knew you were going to say something seductive like that. A waitress named Jessica comes to their table. Jessica, how may I serve you? Elizabeth, I'll have Martin. Jessica looks at Nicholas. Nicholas, cognac. Jessica, I will be with you in a minute. Jessica walks away. Elizabeth, did I tell you this? Playboy wants me to pose nude. Nicholas, what happened? Elizabeth, I turned them down. Nicholas, how come? Elizabeth, I felt a little bit uncomfortable going nude at the early stage of my career. It's kind of thwarting. Nicholas, what do you mean by thwarting? Elizabeth, I felt embarrassed. Nicholas, humorously, you'll be fine. Elizabeth, you don't mind seeing me exposing my breasts on the cover of a magazine? Nicholas, I am only joking. It's up to you. If you want to pose nude, I will support you. But I wouldn't want to share you with the angels in heaven. She smiles in beauty, gets up, walks around the table, and sits on his lap. Elizabeth, I couldn't stop thinking about you. They kiss French. Nicholas, how was work? Elizabeth, I had my first kiss on the set. Nicholas, how was it? Elizabeth, C-. Nicholas, softly down by her lips, would you care for A+? Nicholas and Elizabeth kiss French. On the stage, Diego begins to sing Julio Iglesias's De Nina a Mujer. Dancing floor, later. Nicholas and Elizabeth dance with De Nina a Mujer. We stay with Nicholas and Elizabeth for a while. Close up, Elizabeth and Nicholas. They kiss. On the soundtrack, Dave Matthews Band, Crash Into Me plays melodiously. Int. Bedroom, night. Elizabeth and Nicholas make love with Crash Into Me. It is seductive, alluring, steamy, and passionate. We stay with them with series cuts as they go at it with various erotic positions, better than anything we have ever seen in our lives. EXT/int. Jeep, moving, day. It's a yellow 2016 Jeep. Nicholas is behind the wheel. Elizabeth sits in the passenger seat, and a golden retriever named Sam is in the back seat. They are driving on Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. On the soundtrack, Malibu by Miley Cyrus plays melodiously. Int. Beach house, living room, day. This audio file was created by Panopreter Basic. You can download it at www.panopreter.com. The house is empty. Nicholas and Elizabeth look at the living room, holding hand to hand as Sam follows them behind, like MTV Cribs style. On the soundtrack, Malibu by Miley Cyrus continue to play melodiously. They come to kitchen and look around. They are talking but we don't hear what they are saying due to the music on the soundtrack. Nicholas says something romantic like he can't wait to make love to her in the kitchen. She smiles in beauty and hits him playfully with comical martial art. He defends himself jokingly, as if they were fighting karate in their imaginations. They get closer, kiss French, and walk back to the living room. Beach house, bedroom. Elizabeth and Nicholas come to the bedroom. They look at the bedroom. She says something humorous. He cuddles and kisses her on the cheek. They hold waist to waist and walk toward the direction of the camera. Int. Beach house, porch, day. Elizabeth and Nicholas step out from the living room and stand in the balcony, looking at the ocean. Elizabeth says something romantic. Nicholas smiles softly and says something sweet. She throws her arms around his neck, he wraps his arms around her waist. They kiss French. EXT beach, sunset. Nicholas and Elizabeth take a walk down the beach, conversing. They then stand lips to lips, talk between soft kisses, and kiss intimately in the twilight. Int. Beach house, living room, night. Nicholas and Elizabeth make love on a bed mattress that is placed in the middle of the living room, surrounded by candles. On the soundtrack, Malibu by Miley Cyrus continues to play melodiously. We stay with them for a bit. Int. Studio, Elizabeth's movie, day. We see Forbidden Romance starring Elizabeth and Kevin on the big screen. INT Club, night. Elizabeth is on center stage with a microphone singing something by George Harrison. A bright light focuses on her. The rest of the club is semi-dark. Kevin watches her sitting with a glass of scotches and cigarette, film noir style. On the background, we see extras playing audience, waiters, etc. Close up, Elizabeth. She continues to sing looking at Kevin. Then pan to Sophia, an attractive girl, 26, at the entrance as she walks in. Kevin looks at her, turns his eyes and continues to watch Elizabeth. Sophia walks up to him. She gives him a kiss on the lips and sits next to him silently. Elizabeth looks at Sophia, turns her eyes and looks at Kevin as she continues to sing. We stay with Elizabeth, Kevin, and Sophia in Forbidden Romance for a little while. Then the camera pulls out revealing the setting. We see Matt on the director chair, the cast, the crew, extras, and others doing their parts. Close up, Elizabeth. She continues to sing harmoniously. Elizabeth then finishes singing. Matt, cut. That's a wrap. They give her a round of applause. Elizabeth glows in beauty. Kevin gets up, and walks toward Elizabeth. She approaches him. Kevin, you're amazing. Elizabeth, thanks. Kevin and Elizabeth kiss on the cheeks and walk toward the direction of the camera talking. Kevin, you want to go out for a drink? Elizabeth, why not? Int. Bar, evening. It's a romantic 5 stars bar. We see handful of customers enjoying their outings. On the stage, a young woman named Lydia, 27, sings Leona Lewis's Bleeding Love. Elizabeth and Kevin sit on the stools at the bar, conversing while sipping scotches. Elizabeth, he was there for me when I was going through a hard time. I wanted to be actress and nobody wasn't really being very supportive. He was the one who pushed me. I shut him down at the beginning and I lied to everyone and didn't tell them what I was doing. But he was charming and sexy. And there were a lot of elements that led to me falling in love with him, till I met Nicholas. He changed everything I know about love. Kevin, which part of New York you from? Elizabeth, I was born in Brooklyn. But I spent most of my life in Manhattan. Kevin, what does your boyfriend do? Elizabeth, he's an artist. Kevin, how did you meet? Elizabeth, he lived next to my apartment. One day, I just collapsed at his door after I broke up with Bill. You know, drunk like a bird that fell in a whiskey barrel in Scotland. He then took me to his apartment, laid me on his bed, and did my portrait better than a photograph. The next day, he made me breakfast. I couldn't help falling in love with him. Kevin, he seems nice guy. Elizabeth, he's extremely romantic. Kevin, are you really in love with him? Elizabeth, I'm mad about him. Kevin, humorously how mad? Elizabeth, head over heels, I can't breathe without him. Kevin, he's a very lucky man. She smiles softly. There is a silent moment. They take sips quietly. On the stage, Lydia continues to sing Leona Lewis's Bleeding Love. Close up, Elizabeth and Kevin. He then. Kevin, someone once said, everything that is new raises pleasure in the imagination. Elizabeth, what is it? Kevin, God knows your intention, and the devil only guesses. But he always guesses right. Elizabeth, what does that mean? Kevin, anything can happen in a night that's mystifying as your beautiful eyes. I just have to say the right thing. She smiles softly. Close up, Lydia. She continues to sing Leona Lewis's Bleeding Love. Then her voice plays on the soundtrack melodiously. Elizabeth and Kevin continue to talk without a sound. EXT Westwood Village, night. Elizabeth and Kevin take a walk while conversing, but we don't hear what they are saying due to the music on the soundtrack. Then the music plays softly. Close up, Elizabeth and Kevin. Elizabeth, how did you become an actor? Kevin, it is a long story. Elizabeth, so long as it's not an epic, let the chips fall where they may. Kevin, okay. First, I thought about being an astronaut. You know, to see what the heavens look like. But midway, I switched my major from astronomy at Stanford into theater, and went to this community college in San Francisco for a year. I then dropped out of the school, picked up my stuff, moved to Hollywood, and became an actor. Elizabeth, that's something, but I didn't know you studied astronomy at Stanford. Kevin, it's on the internet. You can Google me. They will tell you everything. Elizabeth, including how many girls you've dated. Kevin, the whole 9 yards and a girl that I kissed in 4th grade. Elizabeth, how many girls did you go out with? Kevin, I don't know, a couple. She gives him a look as if she were telling him, don't be a pussy, just tell me the truth. Even though she knows he is a womanizer, she wants to hear it from him. Kevin, girls, nowadays, seem to wonder. You know, they give you the impression that they seem to be indulged by lewd manners, and praise that bad boy image behind my character. But I'm not really that kind of man who only lives for pleasure. I just wish I met a girl, who is beautiful, sexy, and kind like you, and give her what I can't take for granted. She blushes in beauty. Elizabeth, that is something. Kevin, anyway, you were saying something about control before we got lost in a train of thought earlier. Elizabeth, it's nothing. Kevin, do we really have control over our thoughts and feelings? Elizabeth, sometimes, I have dreadful thoughts that just pop out of my mind, which I don't agree with, and pleasant thoughts that pours out of my heart. But they shouldn't make me either a bad or a good person. I believe there is no real conclusion for human behaviors that give rise to what's right and wrong. However, in general, we don't really have control over what we hate and love. Kevin, what do we have control over? Elizabeth, I don't know if we have control in anything. But the only thing we have control is our actions. Kevin, but our actions are the sum of our thoughts and feelings. We fall in love because we wanted to be loved. And we wanted to be loved because we love and act based on our feelings, initiatives, and desires. Elizabeth, I guess so. They stand facing each other. Kevin, can I trust you? Elizabeth, what is it? Kevin, I think I'm in love with you, Elizabeth. The first time I saw your eyes, I saw a girl that I want to spend the rest of my life with, the only girl that makes me truly happy. I know your heart has been broken many times. You don't want anything that compromises your sanity. Maybe you are afraid of change. And you are protecting yourself from sadness. But let me be the one who makes you feel loved above everything. They kiss. She parts her lips. Whispering lips to lips. Elizabeth, I shouldn't do this. It's not right. Kevin, down by her lips there is no real conclusion for human behaviors that give rise to what's right and wrong. They kiss. On the soundtrack, I'm Like a Bird by Nelly Furtado plays melodiously. EXT/int. Kevin's convertible Aston Martin, moving, night. Red Aston Martin. Kevin is behind the wheel. Elizabeth sits in the passenger seat. They are driving to Elizabeth's house. Close up, Elizabeth. She is silent, lost deep in her heart. Kevin looks at her, turns his eyes, and focuses on the road. EXT Nicholas and Elizabeth's house, porch, night. Nicholas sits on a chair, looking at the ocean while drinking wine. Then, Elizabeth comes from the living room, walks straight, and stands next to the light frame wall. She lights a cigarette, takes a drag, and breathes out the smoke, looking at the ocean without saying a word. Nicholas takes a sip, puts down his glass, and looks at her. She turns her eyes and catches his eyes. Nicholas, hi. Elizabeth, hi. She turns around and faces Nicholas. Nicholas, how is your day? Elizabeth, odd. Nicholas, softly, what's it? Elizabeth, have you ever felt like you want to open your chest and see what your heart really looks like? Nicholas smiles softly and gives her his hand. She takes his hand and sits on his lap with her arms around his neck. Nicholas, if my heart doesn't look like your face, I wouldn't want to find out what it looks like. Elizabeth, under her breath, I love you. Nicholas, I love you too. They kiss. Nicholas, softly, you okay? Elizabeth, just kiss me. They kiss more intimately. Int. Bedroom, night. Elizabeth is resting on Nicholas's chest. Nicholas is caressing her hair. Being With You, by Smokey Robinson plays from a CD. There is a silent moment. She then. Elizabeth, we should never have left New York. Nicholas, you don't like it here? Elizabeth, I hate it. There is a pause. Nicholas, we can go back and spend summer there if you want to. There is a pause. She then. Elizabeth, I felt lost. I don't know whether to take nothing for granted or to believe there are things that last for a while if not forever. Nicholas, Just try to have fun as much as you can. Elizabeth, anyway, Roger, the producer, insisted that I should pose nude for Playboy to draw publicity for the movie despite the consequences. You know, how they build you up, so they can tear you down. Nicholas, humorously, that's Hollywood, darling. You can't lose. She gets up and leans, gazing at his eyes. Elizabeth, they are paying me a lot of money. I might as well sell your soul to the devil and get dirty like Sharon Stone. I'll give the money to charity. He smiles softly. She gives him a soft kiss. Elizabeth, I am not a bad person, am I? Nicholas, no, you are not. Do whatever makes you happy. She kisses him. He cuddles her and kisses her. They kiss more intimately. He spins and gets her on the bottom as they continue to kiss. He then caresses her neck, slowly goes down between her legs, and begins to give her oral pleasure. Close up, Elizabeth. Her face glows with sexual pleasure. On the soundtrack, Prince Kiss plays melodiously, replacing Being With You by Smokey Robinson. Int. Playboy photo shot, day. Elizabeth poses nude for Playboy with serious cuts. It's sensual. We stay with her for a bit. Int. Elizabeth's movie, day. We are watching Forbidden Romance. INT bar, night. Elizabeth points a gun at Kevin, who is sitting at a table with a glass of scotch and a bottle. The bar is empty. Kevin is unmoved. He takes a sip, puts his drink down, and opens his shirt. Kevin, calmly, go ahead. Shoot me. I died the day I laid my eyes on you. Do me a favor. Just pull the trigger and take me out of my pain. I'm nothing but a ghost without you. Elizabeth can't do it. Her eyes are filled with tears. Kevin, you can't do it, can you? Kevin gets up, and walks up to her. Kevin, give me the gun. He takes the gun from her hand. They cuddle and kiss passionately. He then parts his lips. Kevin, I'm sorry. He shoots her in the stomach and holds her as she falls on his arms. He sits with his knee, embracing her. She looks at his eyes in tenderness. He gazes at her eyes softly. Elizabeth, I love you. Her tears fall by her cheeks. Kiss me like as if you've always loved me. He kisses her. She dies. He then lifts her, carries her body, and walks out of the bar. EXT bar, night. Kevin steps out the bar, carrying Elizabeth. He turns and walks toward the direction of the camera. On the screen, the end comes. We do an artistic camera work, pan to, the set. Kevin, carrying Elizabeth, walking toward the direction of the camera at the film set. Matt is behind the camera. We see the cast members, the crew, grips, and extras in the background. Matt, cut. That's a wrap. Everybody applauds as if they got nominated for Academy Award. Kevin puts Elizabeth on the floor. They hug and kiss. They quickly part their lips. Then the camera pulls out with overhead shot. Int. Beverly Hills Villa, party, night. A big party is in progress. We see celebs, elites, and the cream of the crops dancing, standing, and enjoying the party with drinks, and refreshment. On the stage, Maroon 5 perform Sunday Morning. Elizabeth, wearing a spellbinding gown, and Nicholas, wearing a tuxedo, walk through the crowd holding each other's arms. Elizabeth, you remember that day Matt used you as an extra? Nicholas, yeah. Elizabeth, he said he wanted you for a major role to star next to me. He's working on this story, about an artist who falls for a femme fatale. She convinces him to duplicate stolen arts and ends up falling in love with him while secretly working for a con artist. Nicholas, that sounds interesting. Elizabeth, he thinks you could be the next big deal. He smiles at her softly. They stand lips to lips. Nicholas, I don't know anything about acting. Elizabeth, it's not that complicated. You read the script. When the director says action, we kiss French. They kiss French. Elizabeth then sees Kevin, who is standing at the bar with a glass of scotch alone. He salutes her. She ignores him. Elizabeth, let's get drinks. She holds Nicholas's arm, and takes him the opposite side of the bar. Close up, Elizabeth and Nicholas. Walking toward the bar. Elizabeth, imagine if you have the power to influence everything that is around you, how do you define acting? Nicholas, I don't know, is it privilege? Elizabeth, it's license to exercise your demons. And at the same time, it's an excuse to write love poems to your soul. Nicholas smiles softly. They exchange soft kisses as they come up to the bar. Bartender, what can I get you? Elizabeth, champagne cocktail. The bartender looks at Nicholas. Nicholas, same thing. Elizabeth, imitating him, same thing. She kisses him. They kiss as the bartender makes their drinks. Close up, Elizabeth and Nicholas. They kiss more intimately. They part their lips as the bartender places 2 champagne cocktails in front of them. Elizabeth grabs her glass. Elizabeth, thanks. Nicholas grabs his champagne cocktail, thanks the bartender with a nod, and turns with Elizabeth. They walk toward the camera through the crowd. On the stage, Maroon 5 continue to sing, Sunday Morning. Dancing floor, later. Elizabeth and Nicholas dance slow with Sunday Morning in the middle of the crowd. Close up, Elizabeth, and Nicholas. Elizabeth, what do you want to be remembered for? Nicholas, giving my heart to the most beautiful girl in the world. She smiles in beauty. They exchange soft kisses. Elizabeth, what else? Nicholas, dancing with her at this moment while trying to decipher the mystery of her sexy eyes. They exchange soft kisses. Elizabeth, what else? Nicholas, for falling in love with her lips while trying to fathom the riddle of her nose. He kisses her on the nose. Elizabeth, what else? Nicholas, dissolving into mist while trying to solve the secret of her phenomenal lips. She smiles in beauty. They kiss French. Kevin, who is standing at the bar with a glass of scotch, converses with Sophia. Sophia, you can't stand me. You hate me, don't you, Kevin? Kevin, no, I don't. I'm an actor. I can't offer to hate a soul. Sophia, why you play hard to get? Kevin, what makes you say that? Sophia, I called you the other night to tell you about a script that Rick wanted me to show you. Instead, I got your answering machine. Since you don't care what I have to say, I didn't bother to leave a message. Kevin, what's the script about? Sophia, it's about a man who has the ultimate sexual power. And every time he makes love to the girls, as they're about to reach their climax, he turns into a ghost, dissolves under their skins, and gives them ultimate sexual orgasms till their hearts stop and die. The next morning, the cops discover their bodies, lying on the bed with dahlias on their vaginas. Kevin, that's a fascinating story. Sophia, it's an erotic thriller. Party, later. Elizabeth, Nicholas, Matt, and an attractive woman named Samantha, 33, are in the middle of conversation involving Buddha and Kama Sutra. Matt, you see the thing about Buddha. He came from a wealthy background. His father was a king. He was destined to a luxurious life as a prince. But one day, he took his chariot, left the palace with his servant, and saw an old man. He thought people never aged, live forever young. His servant told him that was not the case. People indeed get old. He left his home again and saw a diseased man, and afterward he watched various ill people. He got disheartened and went out and changed the fate of humankind forever. Meanwhile, Elizabeth turns her eyes and looks at Kevin as he continues to talk to Sophia. She turns her attention back to Matt. Matt, in the other hand, Kama Sutra is a book of love that deals with human sexuality written by Vatsyayana. It shows you the spiritual value of sex, and how to obtain pleasure at the highest level. They are two aspects of ideas that simplify the model of human suffering and the basic principle of pleasure. Elizabeth, excuse me. To Nicholas, I'll be outside smoking. I'll be back. Elizabeth gives him a kiss on the lips, excuses them, and begins to walk toward the exit. Pan to Kevin and Sophia. Kevin and Sophia continue to talk. Sophia, but first I have to go to Havana and do this little documentary about the origin of salsa. And shoot an erotic film titled Seductive Fever of the Heart that exploits salsa and sexuality. I have an appointment with Diego Luna, the actor who stars in Y2 Mama Tambien. He also stars in Dirty Dancing, Havana Nights with Romola Garai. Kevin looks at Elizabeth as she is about to exit, takes a sip and puts down the glass. Kevin, excuse me. I have to run. I'll talk to you later. Kevin kisses Sophia on the cheek and begins to walk toward Elizabeth. Pan to Elizabeth. She exits. Kevin continues to walk through the crowd. Out of nowhere comes a girl named Amber, 25, stops him with her arms round his waist. Amber, hey. Kevin, hi. Amber, I saw you standing at the bar alone earlier. I was going to say, what's up, but I was with my fiancé, Edmund. He gives her a kiss on the cheek as she continues to talk. Kevin, I have to run. I'm in a hurry. She holds his arm. Amber, wait. I want to talk to you about the audition. Kevin sees a waiter walking with a bottle of wine and glasses. We follow the waiter. Then pan to, on the stage, Maroon 5 begin to sing, She Will Be Loved. EXT Beverly Hills Villa, water fountain, night. Elizabeth walks up to the water fountain while smoking cigarette, and sits on the concrete. She takes a drag and breathes out the smokes, looking at the stars in the skies. Then Kevin comes with a bottle of wine, Chateau Margaux, and 2 glasses. She looks at him. Kevin, hi. Elizabeth, hi. Kevin puts the glasses on the water fountain, opens the wine, and pours it on the glasses. He puts the bottle on the ground, and gives her the glass. She takes it. Elizabeth, thanks. Kevin, think nothing of it. Kevin grabs the other glass for himself and sits next to her. There is a pause. They take sips quietly. Kevin, how are you handling the transition from modeling to acting? Elizabeth, it's pretty good. I always wanted to be an actress since I was a little girl. You know, watching Demi Moore in Ghost, I just waited the right time and made the decision. Kevin, if they told me you have been doing it since you were in your mother womb, I would have believed them. You're a natural born star. Elizabeth, what about you? Do you see yourself as an actor or a star? Kevin, depend on my disposition. When it's cloudy, I find myself an actor, playing a torment soul in my head. Points at his head. And when it's clear, I find myself talking to the farthest star, points at his heart, as if she were here with me. Elizabeth, you sound insightful. Kevin, is that bad? Elizabeth, not at all, unless if you're the first sensitive man who doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. Kevin, humorously I'm sensitive. She gives him a soft beautiful smile in seduction. Elizabeth, do you enjoy being the sexiest man alive? He smiles softly. Kevin, humorously, I enjoy being a lot of things in magazines, it's entertainment, but nothing gives me more pleasure than giving a beautiful girl what she desires the most. Elizabeth, is that your motto, a byword that you live and die by? Kevin, it might as well be. I'll do everything in my power to make sure she has the time of her life. She gives him a soft alluring smile that melts heart at the spot. On the soundtrack, She Will Be Loved plays with full volume. They take sips. She gives him her cigarette. He takes the cigarette, takes a drag, and breathes out the smokes with style as they continue to talk without a sound. Int. Party, night. On the stage, Maroon 5 continue to sing, She Will Be Loved. Close up, Nicholas. He stands alone with a glass of martini. Out of nowhere, Sophia walks up to him. Sophia, hi. Nicholas, hi. Sophia, I am Sophia. Nicholas, Nicholas. Sophia, do you mind if I call you Nick? Nicholas, not at all. Sophia, so, what you drinking, Nick? Nicholas, martini. Sophia, can I have a sip? She just takes the drink from his hand, has a sip, and gives him the glass back. Sophia, I needed a sip to break the ice. I had a lot of things in my mind. You know, like crime and sex. Nicholas, I don't know anything about crime. It has broad meaning, like activity that involves breaking the law. Or rather variation, breaking and entering, shoplifting, murder, auto theft, and others. And sex can be used to express gender in a perfect world. Sophia, in a perfect world, we would have been standing naked, gorging on fruits that we picked from tree of the knowledge of good and evil like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, while talking about things that are forbidden. But instead, we are here standing with our clothes on in a virtual reality world, and wondering how we can seduce each other into the bed like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Nicholas, I don't need to go to Blockbuster and rent a science fiction film, or read a Bible to translate what you just said. I would have gone for it in a heartbeat if I wasn't with someone that I am in love with. You are an extremely attractive girl. Sophia, thanks. But I hope you are not thinking I'm rude. Nicholas, not at all. I have always respected a girl who is straightforward. But I am with my sweetheart, whom I love more than anything else. I don't want you to be disappointed if I say anything that's inconvenient. Sophia, anyway, I heard you're a painter? He nods, yes. Sophia, what kind of painting do you do? Nicholas, artistic paintings. There is a pause. She then. Sophia, do you do nude portraits? Nicholas, I used to. Sophia, why did you stop? Nicholas, I didn't want to offend my girlfriend. Sophia, that's cute. She gives him a seductive look. There is a silent moment. Maroon 5 continue to sing, She Will Be Loved. EXT Beverly Hills Villa, Water Fountain, Night. Back to, Kevin and Elizabeth. Elizabeth, sometime I think about life after death. You know, hell and heaven, even reincarnation, but what if there's nothing at the end? When we die, that's it? Eternal rest. We're gone forever, or maybe there is peace that leads toward happiness regardless of who we are and what we've done. Kevin, I don't know anything about life after death. As much as I want to believe life is mystery, I think there is an infinite spirit that keeps the flow of energy in the universe structured. And despite what's rational, if you go war with yourself, you are going war with the stars. If you make peace with yourself, you are making peace with the heavens. But don't let anything come between you and your dream that compromise your future. Elizabeth, how's that? He gazes at her eyes tenderly. Kevin, true love. I need you, Elizabeth. I can't live another day without telling you this. I need you like darkness needs light. There is nothing in this world that makes me feel flesh and spirit like when I am with you. And whoever you are with, whatever you do, wherever you go, you can always count on me. I'll be there when you need me to love you till death do us apart. She takes a sip. Elizabeth, excuse me. She puts down the drink, and walks toward the house. Int. Beverly Hills Villa, Party, Night. On the stage, Maroon 5 continues to sing She Will Be Loved. The guests and patrons continue to party like Christmas. Pan to, Nicholas and Sophia. They are in the middle of conversation. Sophia, how did you convince them? Nicholas, I looked at their eyes and thought about millions way to immortalize them. Sophia, they then took their clothes off and posed nude for you. Nicholas, pretty much. Sophia, that doesn't seem fair. Nicholas, maybe life isn't fair after all. Sophia, I believe character is what defines who you are. It doesn't have to be lewdness, does it? Out of nowhere she takes out her underwear and hands him the underwear. In the meantime, Elizabeth looks at them. Nicholas sees Elizabeth. Elizabeth turns around and walks toward the exit. Nicholas, to Sophia, excuse me. Nicholas gives her the underwear back, and runs after Elizabeth. On the stage, Maroon 5 continue to sing She Will Be Loved. EXT Villa, Night. Elizabeth exits the house, and walks down the garden. Nicholas steps out of the villa, and runs after Elizabeth. Nicholas, Elizabeth. She continues to walk faster. He comes up to her and holds her arms. Nicholas, where you going? Elizabeth, let me go. Elizabeth frees her hand, and continues to walk down the garden. Nicholas holds her arm before she goes anywhere. Nicholas, wait. Let me explain. They stand face to face. Elizabeth, go ahead, explain. You were gonna fuck her. Isn't that it? Nicholas, I swear on my mother eternal soul nothing happened. We were just talking. You know me, I wouldn't. Before he adds another sentence, Elizabeth gets closer, throws her arms around him, and gives him a long passionate kiss. She then parts her lips. Elizabeth, look, Nicholas. I love you with all my heart, breath, and soul. I don't know where I would be without you. But I'm like a candle in the wind. I'm just gonna hang around for a while, till the wind extinguishes me. I'll be gone forever. Just give me the car's key. Reaches his pocket and takes the key. Ask her to give you ride home. She kisses him on the cheek. Elizabeth, bye. She turns and walks away, leaving Nicholas on the foreground of the screen. Close up, Nicholas. He looks at her in pain. On the soundtrack, My Immortal by Evanescence plays melodiously. Nicholas then turns his eyes and looks at Kevin as he is about to enter the villa. Kevin looks at him, turns his eyes, and walks into the house. Nicholas turns his around and walks toward the direction of the camera, away from the house. EXT/int. Jeep, moving, night. Elizabeth is behind the wheel, driving, turns her eyes, and sees a gift bag in the passenger seat. She reaches down, grabs the gift, opens the bag, and takes out a small bottle of Jameson Irish whiskey, about 1.5 liter. Elizabeth opens the tops and begins to drink the liquor straight out of the bottle. EXT Street, day. Nicholas strolls down in the street of Beverly Hills, takes out a cigarette, lights the cigarette, and begins to smoke. EXT Jeep, night. Elizabeth, who is sitting on the hood of the car, continues to drink out of the bottle, while resting her back against the window. On the soundtrack, My Immortal by Evanescence continues to play melodiously. EXT Street, night. Nicholas continues to walk on the streets of Beverly Hills. EXT/int. Jeep, moving, night. Elizabeth drives in the street of Sunset recklessly. She seems drunk. Then out of nowhere comes a police car behind her vehicle, and begins to follow her from close distance. Elizabeth looks at him in the rearview mirror. Seconds, her car swerves off the lanes. The red and blue lights of the cop's Ford Crown Victoria flash his light, immediately followed by siren to alert her. Elizabeth drives a little bit and tries to pull on the side, but her car drives farther off the road and stops awkwardly. Elizabeth, fuck me. Elizabeth takes out a cigarette. In the background, the police officer steps out of his vehicle and begins to walk toward her. Close up, Elizabeth. She lights the cigarette and takes a drag. Elizabeth, isn't life a bitch? She breathes the smoke at the screen. Int. Bus, moving, night. A bus driver drives the bus. Nicholas sits in the far end of the bus alone. Int. Police station, mugshot, night. Mugshot of Elizabeth. Elizabeth stands facing left. Light flashes. Elizabeth stands facing right. Light flashes. Elizabeth stands facing the camera. Light flashes. Int. Bathtub, night. Nicholas is in bathtub that is filled with hot water, sleeping with his cloth while holding a bottle of whiskey, Black Label, on his hand. Int. Police station, cell, day. Elizabeth sits on the bench. We see 4 female inmates sharing the cell with Elizabeth. A female officer appears behind the bar. Female officer, Elizabeth McCarty. Elizabeth gets up, and walks forward. The officer opens the cell. Female officer, you're going home. Elizabeth steps out and walks toward the camera, blacking the screen. EXT police station, day. Elizabeth walks out the police station and finds Kevin standing and waiting for her. Kevin, hi. Elizabeth, hi. Elizabeth and Kevin cuddle and kiss. Kevin, are you okay? Elizabeth, I'm fine. They kiss more intimately. On the soundtrack, Iris by Goo Goo Dolls plays melodiously. EXT/int. Convertible Aston Martin, moving, day. Elizabeth sits in the passenger seat. Kevin is behind the wheel, driving down the street. Int. Elizabeth and Nicholas's house, studio, day. Nicholas paints an artistic nude painting of a woman and a man courting in the garden. Int. Diner, day. Elizabeth and Kevin sit at a booth with a turkey sandwiches, salad, and 2 Diet Cokes. There is a silent moment. On the soundtrack, Iris continues to play melodiously. He then. Kevin, did you want to call him? She shakes her head no. There is a pause. Kevin, you can stay with me as long as you wish. Elizabeth, sure. She takes out the straw from her glass, and takes a big sip out of the glass. Int. Elizabeth and Nicholas's house, studio, day. Nicholas continues to paint, the painting of a woman and a man courting in the garden. EXT Elizabeth and Nicholas's house, sunset. Jeep. Elizabeth comes driving, and parks the car in front of the house. She gets out of the Jeep, and walks toward the house. Int. Elizabeth and Nicholas's house, living room, sunset. Hobo Blues by John Lee Hooker plays on the stereo. Elizabeth opens the door off screen, steps into the house and sees Nicholas standing at the bar with a glass of whiskey. Elizabeth, I just came to get my stuff. He nods sure. She walks to the bedroom, leaving Nicholas on the screen. Nicholas takes a sip, pulls out a cigarette from his chest pocket, lights the tobacco, and begins to smoke. We stay with Nicholas for a few seconds as he takes sips from his whiskey, listening to hobo blues, while smoking. Int. Living room, later. On the soundtrack, I'll Never Get Out of These Blues Alive by John Lee Hooker plays melodiously, replacing hobo blues. Elizabeth returns to the living room carrying a small luggage. Nicholas looks at her. Nicholas, you need help with that. He crashes the cigarette. Elizabeth, it's okay. I can carry it. But thanks for the thought. Nicholas, holding his glass as she walks by one for the road. Elizabeth, looks at his eyes. Why not? Elizabeth comes to the bar, puts her luggage on the floor, and stands in front of him. Nicholas, whiskey. Elizabeth, straight. Nicholas pours a glass for her. Elizabeth takes the drink, and has a sip while spying his eyes with seduction. She puts down her drink on the counter. Nicholas takes out another cigarette, lights it and smokes. Nicholas, cigarette. Nicholas offers her a cigarette from the box. Elizabeth takes a cigarette, and places it on her lips. He lights the cigarette for her. She takes a drag and exhales out the smoke at his direction. There is a silent moment. She then. Elizabeth, referring to the music, is that John Lee Hooker? Nicholas, I'll Never Get Out of These Blues Alive. There is a pause. They continue to listen to I'll Never Get Out of These Blues Alive while smoking in between taking sips from their whiskeys. He then. Nicholas, does this mean you're leaving? Elizabeth, I need some time alone. Nicholas, under his breath, I understand. He takes a sip from his whiskey as she smokes with style. There is a silent moment. They continue to listen to I'll Never Get Out of These Blues Alive quietly. Int. Kevin's house, day. It is a luxurious house worth $30 million easily. Kevin comes up to the door, and opens the door, revealing Elizabeth. Elizabeth, hi. Kevin, come in. She picks up her luggage from the floor. Kevin quickly gets in action to help her. Kevin, let me get that for you. He takes her luggage from her hand. Elizabeth, thanks. She steps in. He closes the door. Kevin, make yourself at home. I'll put this in the bedroom where you sleep. She nods sure. Kevin walks to upstairs, leaving Elizabeth on the screen. She walks down the living room, looking around the house. It's flawless. She comes to the coffee table, picks up the remote control, and turns on the TV. It's TMC. They are showing His Girl Friday starring Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell. Elizabeth sits on the sofa, folding her legs. She thinks about changing the channel, but decides to leave it, puts the remote control on the sofa and begins to watch the movie. Kevin comes to the living room from upstairs. Kevin, should I order Chinese or you want to go out and eat? Elizabeth, go ahead and order Chinese. I don't feel like going anywhere. Kevin, I'll just do that. Kevin comes to the bar, grabs his cell phone, and walks to the kitchen, leaving Elizabeth on the screen. Pause. Close up, Elizabeth. She seems sad. Living room/kitchen. Kevin, do you want anything to drink? Elizabeth, Diet Coke. He opens the refrigerator and looks at a can of Diet Coke. Kevin, can is okay? Elizabeth, it's fine. Kevin grabs the Coke from the refrigerator while making order. He closes the refrigerator and walks to the living room. Kevin, making order 2 dinner special. Pause. Kevin, Beverly Hills 1985. Pause. Kevin, thanks. Kevin hangs up the phone, comes to the bar, puts down the phone on the counter, grabs a glass, and pours the Diet Coke in the glass. He then grabs vodka, looks at Elizabeth who is watching His Girl Friday. Kevin, rum or vodka? Elizabeth, watching the TV whiskey. Kevin grabs Macallan Rare Cask, pour the liquor in the glass, mixes it with Coke. Kevin grabs the sweet toxic blend, walks up to Elizabeth, and gives her the drink. Elizabeth, thanks. Kevin, you welcome. Kevin sits at the coffee table, on a smaller couch. Elizabeth takes a sip, holds the drink on the side of her thigh as she continues to watch the movie. There is a silent moment. They watch the movie quietly. He then looks at her. She turns her eyes and catches his gaze. They both smile softly at each other. Int. Kevin's living room, later. Elizabeth and Kevin sit on the floor and eat Chinese food with a bottle of red wine while smoking weed. When I Fall in Love, Jazz, by Chris Botti plays on the stereo. Elizabeth, he doesn't really believe in marriage. He said, if 2 people love each other, they are married in their hearts forever. Kevin, he didn't really say that, did he? Elizabeth, he said, marriage is a promise of unity between 2 people who love each other. It should be neither instituted by the state nor man and woman must announce themselves as husband and wife in front of thousands of people in a wedding ceremony. Kevin, I don't know. I love seeing a girl in a wedding gown. She doesn't always get to wear it like Madonna, singing, like a virgin. I mean, it symbolizes the beginning of eternal bond between 2 soulmates. Elizabeth, I hear you. They exchange 2 soft alluring smiles. There is pause. Kevin takes a puff. Elizabeth has a sip from her wine, listening to When I Fall in Love. She then. Elizabeth, referring to the jazz, who's that? Kevin, Chris Botti, When I Fall in Love. Elizabeth, I didn't know you were into jazz. Kevin, I'm into everything, jazz, hip-hop, rock and roll, reggae, and blues. Elizabeth, I like jazz and blues. They keep me at ease. But I'm into pop. I love to dance. That's when I feel liberated from my conscious. Kevin, it's endearing. If you can liberate yourself from your conscious and ordinary things that occupied your thoughts, you master life. You feel the presence of God in you. There is a pause. Kevin puffs the weed and passes the ganja to Elizabeth. She takes the weed, has a puff, and breathes out the smoke in seduction. She then. Elizabeth, why do most of us believe in God? Is it because we fear him, or is it because he makes our life easy while we're trying to figure out why we are here, or rather guide our thoughts into the right state of mind against bad habits, high expectation, and spiritual forces that are irrepressible? Kevin, I would have to say all of the above. Imagine there are over 7 billion people live in this planet that we called Earth. And moreover, something tells you many had lived and moved on since the dawn of time. You don't know what is next, what is faith, what is time, what life is all about, and what the future is holding. You are one individual who is trying to figure out how you came to this world, your ambition, dream, and troublesome existence. At the same time, there is a system that's designed to keep you going and sustain the principle of existence in the idea of God, who created the world, who knows all, and can do all. If you do good deed, you'll go heaven and be honored beyond this world. If you do bad deed, you'll go hell and burn for eternity. Meanwhile, life will continue to torture your heart and trouble your soul till you stop reasoning, and asking yourself what the purpose of your life is. However, you should always allow your soul to prophesize the truth, and picture that the love of your life is the center of attention, she is the way, divinity, the principle of cosmic order, and the light of the world. They get closer lips to lips. You then feel your heart beating on the lips of the most beautiful girl in the universe. She smiles in beauty. They kiss. On the soundtrack, Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Poison plays melodiously. Int. Kevin's villa, swimming pool, morning. Elizabeth swims in the luxurious swimming pool. Int. Studio, morning. Nicholas is in the middle of painting Elizabeth out of his memory on a canvas. Montage. On the soundtrack, Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Poison continues to play melodiously. 1. Kevin house. Elizabeth, who is topless, sits at a table, next to the swimming pool, reading reviews in her laptop. Kevin brings her breakfast, places it in front of her and gives her a soft kiss on the lips. 2. Nicholas's studio. Nicholas continues to paint Elizabeth out of his memory. 3. Kevin's Aston Martin, moving. Kevin sits behind the wheel. Elizabeth sits in the passenger seat. They are driving in the street of Beverly Hills. 4. Nicholas's studio. Nicholas continues to paint Elizabeth out of his memory. It looks like a photograph. 5. Museum. Elizabeth and Kevin walk down the gallery, looking at various interesting paintings. They are holding each other hands. 6. Nicholas sits on the beach with Sam, smoking cigarette. Sam wants to play, holding a tennis ball on his mouth. Sam drops the tennis ball in front of Nicholas. Nicholas takes the ball and throws it in the ocean. Sam runs after the ball, and jumps into the water. Nicholas continues to smoke. 7. Yacht. Elizabeth and Kevin are fishing. Elizabeth catches a big fish and pulls it out of the water and holds it in the air. Kevin quickly puts down his fishing rod and helps her, having fun, smiling, and laughing. On the soundtrack, Blank Space by Taylor Swift plays melodiously, replacing Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Poison. 8. Sam returns with the ball wet, and drops it next to Nicholas where he sits at. Sam then shakes the water from his fur and sparkle it at Nicholas like a bad hose that has holes. Nicholas reacts to the water. 9. Staples Center. Elizabeth and Kevin watch basketball, the Lakers vs Celtics. They then kiss. 10. Movie set. Elizabeth and Kevin kiss, standing next to a red Corvette convertible. The director Matt says, "Cut." They continue to kiss for 3 more seconds and part their lips. 11. Art gallery show. Nicholas's paintings are in display. We see portraits of Elizabeth on the wall. Nicholas talks to Gabriella. He then excuses her and walks toward the exit through the crowd that is standing with drinks and refreshment while mingling. On the soundtrack, Blank Space by Taylor Swift plays softly and fades away. 12. Record studio. Elizabeth is in the middle of recording a song, Love of My Life. She has amazing voice. We stay with her for a while. 13. Nicholas shops at a supermarket, placing a variety of items in a cart. On the soundtrack, The Love of My Life by Elizabeth plays melodiously. 14. Elizabeth poses for Vogue with series cuts. 15. Supermarket. Nicholas sees Elizabeth on the cover of Vogue, picks up the magazine, flips the pages around, and looks at the pictures of Elizabeth. 16. Kevin's house. Elizabeth is getting ready for dinner. She puts a sexy orange gown, and looks at herself in the mirror. Elizabeth doesn't like what she sees in the mirror. She takes it off, places the dress on the bed, and grabs a beautiful black gown from the bed. Elizabeth puts on the dress and looks at her image in the mirror. She looks enticing. 17. Nicholas's kitchen. Nicholas is cooking, cutting the tomato at the kitchen table. On the soundtrack, The Love of My Life by Elizabeth continues to play melodiously. 18. A romantic restaurant. Kevin and Elizabeth have dinner in the candlelight. 19. Nicholas's living room. Nicholas sets up dishes, a bottle of red wine, and 2 wine glasses. He then lights a candle. 20. Restaurant. Kevin and Elizabeth dance slow. 21. Living room. Nicholas sits alone, gazing at the candle. 22. Street. Elizabeth and Kevin take a walk, conversing. But we don't hear what they are saying due to The Love of My Life by Elizabeth on the soundtrack. 23. Nicholas's living room. Sitting at the dinner table, Nicholas sketches Elizabeth on a small canvas from memory. 24. Bridge. Elizabeth and Kevin continue to walk while talking. Kevin then stops in front of her. Out of nowhere, he produces a diamond ring, and goes down with his one knee. On the soundtrack, The Love of My Life by Elizabeth plays softly. Kevin, will you marry me? She doesn't know what to say but quickly comes to her sense. Elizabeth, yes. She gives him her fingers. He takes her hand, puts the ring on her middle finger, and gets up. They kiss. Int. Music shop, day. Elizabeth is shopping for CDs, walking down the aisle. On the soundtrack, Teenager Dream by Katy Perry plays melodiously. Elizabeth turns at the corner and runs into Nicholas, who is standing and looking at CDs. Nicholas turns his eyes and catches Elizabeth's eyes. Nicholas, hi. Elizabeth, hi. Nicholas, what's up? Elizabeth, nothing much. Nicholas, how are you? Elizabeth, I'm fine. Nicholas, what you're doing here? Elizabeth, shopping around, looking for Wicked Game, by Chris Isaak. I'll ask them. He nods, okay. There is a pause. He then. Nicholas, you look beautiful. Elizabeth, tell me about it. Nicholas, a tulip that's anointed by eternal glamour. Elizabeth, thanks. I need that compliment. You look fabulous yourself. Nicholas, thanks. But I doubt if I need that compliment. Nothing feels real without you. They share soft smiles. There is a pause. He then. Nicholas, what you're up to these days? Elizabeth, working hard. Nicholas, I heard you're getting married. Elizabeth, just to reduce some pressure from the back of my brain. Nicholas, it's good. Elizabeth, what you doing here? He shows her an album, Wicked Game by Chris Isaak. She beams with beautiful smile, and slaps him on the arm. At the same time, her eyes are filled with tears. There is a pause. Nicholas, you want to grab lunch? Or shall I cook for you? Elizabeth, let me cook for you if you don't mind. She gives him a wink. He gives her soft smile, gazing at her eyes in tenderness. He then nods his head, sure. On the soundtrack, Teenage Dream by Katy Perry plays with full volume. Elizabeth takes his arm. They walk toward the direction of the camera holding arm to arm. EXT Farm Market, day. /int. Supermarket, day. We see Nicholas and Elizabeth buying groceries outside where they sell agriculture products like vegetable and fruit, and throwing different items in the shopping cart at a supermarket with series cuts. Int. Nicholas and Elizabeth's house, kitchen, day. On the soundtrack, Teenage Dream by Katy Perry continues to play with full volume. We see Elizabeth and Nicholas cooking, cutting onion, making pasta, spaghetti, meatballs sauce, lobsters, and lasagna in series cuts. Meanwhile, they are flirting, smiling, conversing, etc. EXT Nicholas and Elizabeth's house, porch, day. Nicholas sets up the dishes on a table, and goes back to the living room. Int. Nicholas and Elizabeth's house, kitchen, day. Elizabeth is making strawberry cake. Nicholas returns to the kitchen, comes behind her silently, pokes her waist with his 2 index fingers good-humoredly. She screams, turns around, and hits him on the arm playfully while saying something. But we don't hear what they are saying due to the music on the soundtrack. He says something romantic. She smiles in beauty. On the soundtrack, To the Moon and Back by Savage Garden plays melodiously. He gives her his hand. She takes his hand. They dance stylishly. They make Uma Thurman and John Travolta amateurs. We stay with them for a little while. EXT Nicholas and Elizabeth's house, porch, day. Nicholas and Elizabeth sit at the table. They are not really eating, just drinking wines. Your Body is a Wonderland by John Mayer plays on the stereo softly. Elizabeth, I don't see any problem there. But I feel like I see some similarity between my style and personality in that I am going into womanhood. You know, I'm kind of going on my own and discovering what I want to do in life and kind of following through with that what happiness really is. He nods right. There is a pause. They take sips. He then. Nicholas, I read on a magazine, something about you losing weight and other things. Elizabeth, I would have gone insane if I got worried about what the tabloids are saying about me. It's a lie. You know, I went through a phase. I lost weight while I was shooting Wildflower at the beginning, and then gained it back. Nicholas, you look amazing. Elizabeth, thanks. There is a silent moment. They take sips listening to the music. He then. Nicholas, I heard you start partying again. Elizabeth, you know, I love clubbing. I won't lie to you. I'll probably have some kind of stroke, or die with heart attack that comes with boredom if I sit on the same place alone for more than 10 minutes doing nothing. He smiles softly. Nicholas, and your health? Elizabeth, what about it? Nicholas, The TV said they took you to hospital the other day. Elizabeth, it's nothing. The media like to exaggerate. It's heat exhaustion. I just checked in and out. I'm fine. You know, I had been working a lot lately, shooting movies and recording album. I barely have time to sit and do anything at all. Nicholas, softly, you should take care of yourself. Elizabeth, I know, health is the most important thing in life. He can't help but smile softly. There is a silent moment. They take sips. He gazes at her eyes with love. She then. Elizabeth, are you seeing anyone? He shakes his head no, and continues to gaze at her eyes in tenderness. On the soundtrack, Wicked Game by Chris Isaak plays melodiously. Elizabeth and Nicholas exchange soft alluring smiles. He gives her his hand. She takes his hand. They get up, come to the open floor, and begins to dance slow with Wicked Game. Close up, Nicholas and Elizabeth. Nicholas, I have been dreaming about you a lot lately. Elizabeth, what dream? Nicholas, dreams that feel so real. You know, kissing you on the top of Empire State Building, making love to you in the kitchen, and holding you next to my heart in the living room. She smiles softly. There is a pause. They continue to dance. He then. Nicholas, softly by her lips, why is that? The harder I try to forget you, the more I miss you. Elizabeth, I am going through that same emotion. They kiss. She parts her lips. Elizabeth, I must go. Wicked Game plays with full volume. They continue to dance slow. They then kiss more intimately. Int. Kevin's house, bedroom, day. It's Elizabeth and Kevin wedding day. Elizabeth is in a wedding gown, getting prepared for wedding. Caleb and a girl named Rachel, 25, help her applying a light makeup on her face and fixing her wedding gown. EXT beach, day. Nicola sits on beach with Sam. They both are looking at the ocean. EXT wedding chapel, Elizabeth and Kevin wedding, day. A small wedding is in progress with 100 guests, friends, and families. Kevin, who is wearing a tuxedo, stands at the chapel, waiting for Elizabeth. Close up, Elizabeth. Elizabeth walks toward Kevin escorted by her father, Robert McCarty, 52. Kevin comes to Elizabeth and takes her from her father. Elizabeth and Kevin stand in front of the minister. Wicked Game lies in the background and fades away slowly. Minister, we are gathered here in the presence of these witnesses to join this man and this woman together in matrimony. The contract is a most solemn one and not to be entered into lightly, but thoughtfully and seriously with deep realization of its obligations and responsibilities. Kevin looks at Elizabeth's eyes. She looks kind of lost. Minister, join right hands. Elizabeth and Kevin join right hands. Minister, repeat after me. I, Kevin Jones, take you Elizabeth McCarty, to be my wife, my partner in life and my one true love. Kevin, I, Kevin Jones, take you Elizabeth McCarty, to be my wife, my partner in life and my one true love. Minister, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse. Kevin, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse. Minister, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. Kevin, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. Minister, to love and to cherish, from this day forward until death do us part. Kevin, to love and to cherish, from this day forward until death do us part. He looks at Elizabeth's eyes. She is crying. Kevin, wait father. She is not ready. Elizabeth dries her tear. Kevin, it's okay. Don't worry about it. He takes out his car's key. Kevin, just follow your heart. He gives her the key. She smiles in beauty. Elizabeth, thanks. She kisses him on the lips, drops the wedding flowers, turns around, and runs down the aisles. On the soundtrack, Wicked Game by Chris Isaak plays with full volume. Everybody looks at her like where she's going. Kevin looks at her in wonder. Close up, Elizabeth. She continues to run with joy. EXT beach, day. Nicholas continues to look at the ocean. Sam wants to play. He is barking. Nicholas pats Sam and kisses the dog on the head. The dog continues to bark. Nicholas then picks up the tennis ball from the sand and throws it far as he can. Sam runs after the ball. EXT/int. Kevin's convertible Aston Martin, moving, day. Elizabeth is behind the wheel, driving over the speed limit, 130 miles per hour. Her hair is blowing in the air. EXT beach, sunset. Nicholas is looking at the ocean. Sam sits next to him. Then, out of nowhere appears Elizabeth in wedding gown. Sam looks at her and barks. Nicholas turns her eyes and looks at her. Elizabeth continues to walk toward him. He gets up. She runs toward him. He walks toward her. She comes up to him. They cuddle. He picks her up. They kiss passionately. Elizabeth, I love you. Nicholas, I love you too. Close up, Elizabeth and Nicholas. They kiss more intimately. The end.